Slayton, City Manager Lear, our Assistant City Clerk Taylor, and our Recording Secretary today is Ms. Reed. We do have our Police Chief back there, and our Fire Chief did decide to join us about halfway through, and we appreciate him getting on the ball. Thanks, buddy. Just a couple of reminders. If you have a cell phone, please turn them off or put them on silent. If you have a public comment, the public comment cards right over here to my left. Just fill those out and give them to the officer, and he'll pass them down the line. We have public comment at the beginning of the meeting and at the end. So, and with that, we said the Pledge of Allegiance in our last meeting, so we're going to move on with this one. Approval of the agenda, please.
I have something. I would like to move J. Let's see what number it's under. Good God. 4J. I'd like to move up in front of I and after H. That way all of the West Village is done at the same time.
Okay, hold on,
Instead of putting something in between. And then remove 3B for another time frame, correct?
1 second.
Yes, 3B I need to pull from the agenda.
So you want to pull item 4J because that is West Villages. You want to put it with the rest of the West Villages.
Move it
Just a
up
second
in
on
front
those.
of I. Switch.
In a specific order they'd like those to go in so that they're
Okay.
all a little smoother than the way they ended up showing up on here. If you could let Ms. Nicole.
Yes.
We need 4J to be before 4F. And then the first 4A, the DMP, needs to be after 4C.
A needs to be FCA. So it's JFCA? That's what you want, 4JFCA?
No, it should be,
B is going to be the first one.
for the West Villages ones, it would be D, E, J, E, G, H.
DEJG?
D, E, J, F, G, H.
FGH. And then what? All right. And that's it?
No, then
Make-
the first 4A, I think there's two 4As. So 4A, the DMP, needs to be after 4C.
4A after 4C.
Okay, I'll make a motion to see if I got it correct, okay?
Yeah, good luck getting me to follow those directions. All right. Go ahead, Commissioner Liu.
Move to approve consent agenda with the following changes. Pulling 3B until a later point in time. And then under 4, going in the order of D, E, J, F, G, H. And then we would have I and K. Well, no, we've got the others in there too, sorry.
I'm confused now.
I and J would be the last two.
Okay.
And
I'm
Waiting for Commissioner Luke to wrap it up.
And I think that and then we would go back to, we would want to do the Central Park first.
Really, the only thing that we're going to put together is D, E, J, F, G, and H on 4, and then we're putting C and A together, 4, C, and A. And I have a J and F. Right?
Yes, sir.
I think so, yeah.
I still have no idea what I said, but,
We'll make sure you see them in the right order as they're coming up.
okay.
And the key is to vote on them in the right order.
Right, no, I get that.
It will be up to you all when we get to these items. I know last time we saw both of these, especially the Central Park ones, you held the hearings all as one and then voted individually. If you do that again, we'll make sure you vote in the right order.
Okay, that'll help. All right, can I have a second?
yeah, I'll second it. I just, Not 100% sure what
I'm really
she
relying
said.
on city manager.
Doing Central Park first, and then going into West Village,
Yeah.
doing in the order that you gave, followed by I and J.
I and K.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
here we go.
Thank you.
Let's vote. And that passes 4-0. All right. Have any public comment, Commissioner?
I
McDowell?
have public comment, but not for general public comment. It's related to specific agenda items.
Okay, can we ask that person if they would like to do it now? Because I can't be assured at when we will get to it.
One is coming up very first, and then Sable Trace is the next one.
All right, would you like to do it, whoever put them in, would you like to do them now, or would you like to wait for each individual item? Okay.
Because hers is the first item we're going to hear
Well,
after
that's
this.
fine. Then we can go ahead and do it now. Doesn't hurt nothing.
My name is Nancy Hill, and I'm the property
No.
manager.
Oh, this one here.
No.
Well, she wants to get it now. She wants
Oh, I
to-
thought she,
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Nancy Hill. I'm the property manager for Fairway Villas and Cocoa Plum Condominium on Greenwood Avenue. And our main interest is two things with the Sable Trace redevelopment. One is that we get that bridge going across from Greenwood back to 41, because it is going to, in our opinion, eliminate a lot of the traffic going down Greenwood Avenue. As it is coming out on Sumter, it's almost impossible to get out during season by people making U-turns that shouldn't, et cetera. And we feel like it's important that that bridge go across so that we have access to take another route. That's number one. And number two is that the development, we get the berm and stuff around Fairway Villas because we're covered three sides. And that's our main concern. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Switzer, you go ahead and go now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm here to lighten up the mood.
Please state your name.
My name is Pat Switzer. I'm a resident of Northport, but more importantly, today I'm here as the band parent organization president for Northport High School Marching Alliance and bands. I represent about 300 students and their parents. About almost 20 years ago, Dr. Bradley was asked by this commission to put together a marching band for the 4th of July parade. He did that with 16 students. This year, we had 120 students on the field. They are award-winning. They have traveled the country, and this year they have been invited to play in Rome, Italy, for the 2020 New Year's Day parade. I know you're all aware of it, and I thank you, Mayor Hanks, for showing up to the proclamation ceremony that we had in March. The kids still tell me how cool that was that you were there.
The honor was mine, I assure you.
Oh, it was awesome. They're still buzzing about it. Obviously, this kind of an undertaking is very expensive. We have about 50 students that have committed to the $3,500 per person to take this trip. That's in excess of, I think I did the math, on $175,000. So as the BPO president and our parents, we are doing everything we can to try to lighten this load on the students so that we can give the opportunity to as many of them as possible. Our latest brainstorm is to do a rubber duck race at the water park. Original intention was to do that on Labor Day weekend in the Lazy River. Thinking that may be a pipe dream right now. I don't know. I can't get an opening date.
Neither can we.
Yeah. Welcome to our world.
But whenever it opens, our intention would be, we would love to be part of the inaugural events, but we are running into a problem of all of the fees. We have to come up with the insurance, which is not a problem. We will work on that. But in excess of $500 rental fee for the facility. So that is what we're looking for your help with the Special Events Assistance Program. That's really all I have, and I really hope that you will.
And then you were
support our
saying you would
kids.
love to have the band as part of the opening ceremony of the water park?
I have no problem committing our band to whatever they want. I have told them at Parks and Rec that we have an award-winning jazz band. How awesome would it be if you guys
For me to go
did
down
a
the slide
night?
doing my jazz hands?
That's fine.
Be all right, yeah.
But you could do an opening night out there, have the jazz band playing, as well as the marching band during the day. Just let us know.
Doing the one where the floor drops out.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I think it would be wonderful if we'd be able to work something with the band, but we'll let Parks and Rec do that.
Could I ask her
Yes,
some
go ahead.
questions before she walks away pertinent to this? And I know it hasn't been presented yet, so do you want me to wait this or later?
How many since she's there?
How many of those ducks are you going to be selling and for how much?
It hasn't been totally decided yet. We're thinking about $10 per duck. And again, it's going to be however many we can sell. Do I anticipate 1,000 ducks floating through there? No. No. If we did 300-400, I'd be very surprised.
Okay.
I would be surprised at that number.
And you're anticipating 100 people to come watch the ducks?
We would hope so.
No charge for the people to watch the
No,
ducks, just to purchase a duck?
The way we had the paperwork set up, this would happen prior to the opening of the park for the day. We would go in, launch the ducks, run our race, and then clear out, clean up, clear out, so that the park could open for its normal hours. It would be free and open to the public.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on then.
Okay.
Yep. Item 3A.
I will move to
Right.
approve consent agenda item, oh wait, that's
No, wait.
general business, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think we have consent on
No.
this one, correct? So we're actually moving to 3A. It's okay to go to 3A, right? Okay, so we're moving to 3A. Discussion and possible action to award funds from Special Events Assistant Program to the Northport High School Band. City Manager, please introduce the item.
Well, I think our public commenter just did for me, so thank
Yeah.
you very much. I appreciate that. Yes, this is the Special Event Assistance Program. From my understanding, we spoke to them, they are flexible on the dates because Labor Day, first of all, wouldn't be an eligible date to be rented out anyway. That's probably going to be our busiest day of the year for the water park as it is. And so it's not eligible to be rented that day, but we will work with them to find the date that will work if you all approve this.
Okay.
Well, let's put it this way, we'll work with them to find a day that works, whether or not you approve this, is whether or not the city will waive the up to $500.
Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, this is going to appear that I'm being a Debbie Downer. This, we have a strict criteria for this special event assistance program. And I'm trying to justify the taxpayers' dollars for this, because some of the criteria, maybe I'm missing it. I don't see the bigger picture, and that's possible. But how will this attract the visitors from outside of Northport and businesses to Northport? That's one of the criteria. And I'm just trying to understand how this will work.
Commissioner, I'm not sure, but looking at the resolution that's attached to the backup for this program, in the first whereas clause, the fourth line down, it says the purpose of this program is to encourage cultural, educational, environmental, and recreational activities and in the city and to help provide recovery of costs associated with city services that are needed with a special event. I think the argument we went with for this is that it is an educational activity. Band, it's a high school band, so.
Cultural also.
Too cultural, yeah.
It is a fundraiser.
That's, And while you may be looking at the resolution, I'm looking at the actual program guidelines that are also attached. It's supposed to attract visitors and businesses to Northport to be part of the qualifications. I definitely see some of this. Didn't we give, or maybe the commission can help us, but I could have swore we also gave direction for the city manager to come back with a program with like $5,000 in it to help these nonprofits raise funds for going to Rome, for going to like Macy's Days Parade, for doing, and we haven't seen that yet. And I would think that that program would be more geared towards what the band president is looking for than special event assistance.
I do remember that direction. I'll find out. We're still working on that program. So while I agree with you, that program would work for this once it's in place. As it stands right now, it's not. And ultimately, it is up to you all whether or not this program meets, or this special event meets that guideline. We as staff believe that it did. It was looking in the purpose of the program. In the special event guidelines, it talks about educational and cultural also.
I don't see very many people coming and watching ducks go around the lazy river.
I don't think it's about the ducks. I think our interpretation had nothing to do with the ducks.
But that's
It
what
had to do
this-
with what the fundraiser was for.
But that's what this special event is to have ducks go around the lazy river. That's what this is for. I understand the fundraiser part, but the event is to have ducks go around the lazy river. And that's what we're helping them with the fees.
I get your point. I'm telling you what we did. At this point, I've given you staff's reasoning for why we brought this forward. It's up to the commission of whether or not you want to adopt it.
Commissioner Luke?
I can't wait to see those ducks. That is a fundraiser that I absolutely love. In the current of the lazy river, pushing those ducks along is going to be hilarious. I've got to see there, and I will definitely buy at least one duck. But I understand where Vice Mayor is coming from, because this is a fundraiser for a nonprofit. It is our aquatic center where we know we need to be gaining the revenue back. With that being said, we haven't set a criteria that differentiates the aquatic center from the other parks and areas within the city. So because we haven't established that yet, it's not as though they are asking for a freebie. They are asking for the $500, up to $500 because of that 100-person limit. I can't really see why I would say no at this point. Later, if we do have criteria that separates the aquatic center out from things, then that would be different. But right now, I'm all right with letting the ducks swim.
Commissioner Carrison?
I'm ready for a motion.
Get it?
All right, move to, hold on, let me push my motion button before Commissioner Luke yells at me. Move to award funds from the Special Event Assistance Program to the Northport High School Band Parent Organization not to exceed $500, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Carrison, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Commissioner Carrison, you want to say anything to that?
Yeah, quickly, the duck program is widely known. It's done in various organizations. It's huge in Englewood. It's huge in Punta Gorda. I think that it's going to be received very well, and I wish you all the best.
Commissioner Luke?
I'll probably buy
It was a 2-hour time frame. I believe they were giving the ducks, probably won't take them that long to swim around there, but a 2-hour time frame at $250 for the lazy river, so that's where the $500 would come into play for the 100 people also. So I'm good with it. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. Is this going to be done before the pool opens?
Nicole Galehouse, planning manager. I believe, yes, the intent is to be done outside of operating hours. I don't believe you can rent the facility during operating hours.
Okay, so this will be done at like, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning because they got a 2-hour thing, so it'll be done by 9.
Correct.
The people watching the ducks are having to exit the facility prior to us opening up?
Correct.
Okay, now I feel a little bit more better,
Call it the ducks at dawn.
more better. Ducks at dawn. All
Sit
right,
Dawn, I like it.
Ducks at dawn.
That's really cool. I like that.
Was it my turn? Are you ready for me?
Yeah.
All right, let's take the vote.
Want me to vote for you?
And that passes unanimously. Okay. Thank
Thank you
you.
for your patience waiting.
Okay, we're going to move on to our public hearings. City manager, will you help me through this process?
Oh, Lordy.
Since we jumbled everything around
Um,
like a ninja over there.
If you guys, at the last meeting where we talked about Central Park, because that's the one that's first in the list, you guys wanted to have the testimony of all of them at once and then voted individually. So my first question for you is that still the belief of the commission? Is
Yeah, I think that'll be the most expeditious.
that the first step is the clerk needs to swear everybody in because at least some of them are quasi judicial?
Absolutely. And I do want to remind, remind the board that on quasi judicial items, we can only go based off the facts of the pertinent item. We cannot be going off onto tangent questioning because it gives a bad appearance legally. So we got to stay on topic. Yes.
My suggestion would be, if the board is going to hear these as a whole, to just check in with the applicant and make sure there's no objection
Oh, to do it
to
as a whole?
consolidating them.
Do I need to swear him first?
Well, he's shaking his head no.
Since we're at
We have
them.
absolutely no objection, that would be our preference, we appreciate that.
Mr. Bailey, if you would just,
You're a lawyer, man. You don't know better than
Act
this.
like a lawyer, right?
Jeez.
I'm Charlie Bailey, I'm a land use attorney,
Back, but no, we still got procedure here, sir.
and partner law firm Williams Parker, here on behalf of the applicant, and we absolutely do not object to that, and that would be our preference, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. City Clerk, will you please swear in those wishing to provide testimony?
And everyone wishing to provide testimony, please stand and raise your right hand.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, have we read these items into the record to open them?
That's not on my list.
Which items?
The record?
You mean just the petition, or?
Well, we need to identify for the record which items we are about to swear the witnesses in for and which hearings we're about to have.
Thank you.
Please clarify which items these will be then.
Take 5, guys.
This is for both 4As and 4B and 4C.
All right.
For A,
B, C.
B,
The A, B, C.
and for C.
That sounds like a support group.
And then I'm not going to read the ordinance titles at this time. I'll wait until when?
I would read them by.
Because I'm supposed to read, so go through and read them all right now.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Petition CC DMP-18071, Central Park at Northport Development Master Plan for 2 phases of residential development and 1 phase of mixed-use development. Ordinance number 2019-07. An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida relating to CPAL 18-060, amending the comprehensive plan, future land use, figure 1, and future land use policies 2.9, 1-2, 9.3 related to Activity Center 9, amending the comprehensive plan, future land use map 2-7, and existing land use map 2-8 to change the future land use designation from approximately 207.5 acre area located north of US 41 and west of Sumter Boulevard from recreation open space to activity center, providing for findings, providing for adoption, providing for transmittal of documents, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you.
I still gotta go. Okay.
Yeah, I just said thank you. Now swear them in.
All right.
She's gotta go through the rest of them.
Yeah, she's only been to AA so far.
Yeah. Ordinance number 2019-08, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, rezoning approximately 207.5 acres located at Section 29, Township 39 South, Range 21 East, from commercial recreation designation to planned community development designation, providing for findings, providing for filing of approved documents, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 2019-09, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the Unified Land Development Code to add a new Activity Center 9 by amending Chapter 55 Activity Center Designation Design Regulations, Section 55-4 General, amending Chapter 55 Activity Center Design Regulations to add a new Article 9 Central District, Section 53-38 Permitted Principal Uses and Structures, amending the Urban Design Standards Pattern Book to provide regulations for Activity Center 9, adopting the Central Park at Northport Pattern Plan, providing for findings, providing for adoption, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 2019-24, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the Unified Land Development Code, Chapter 50.
No, I think we're done, right? It's those four?
I was on a roll, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Well, City Clerk, you need to slow your roll. Let's go ahead and swear in the,
Okay.
those providing testimony.
Get it all done.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, so help you God?
Okay. Wonderful. All right.
Good evening again.
Have the city manager introduce your case.
Okay.
No?
Ex parte.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Ex parte, please. Commissioner Lou.
Same as what it was in the past, except I did receive one email that I forwarded to the clerk's office in order for it to be put within the file.
Commissioner McDowell?
Is it okay to say same as the last time?
If you previously disclosed them during the first public hearing, yes, ma'am.
So it's the same that I disclosed at the last public hearing on this, and then I did receive a couple emails that I did forward to.
Okay. Same as the previous hearing and nothing else. Mr. Carson?
Yes, I have the same as the previous hearing, but in addition, I've had an email communication with residents of Sable Trace, as well as a conversation with Mr. Miles today. Nothing really imperative. It was more about information that I was trying to gather, questions, and that's it.
Mr. Emmerich?
Same as last hearing, nothing else.
Move on to presentations. Applicant.
Okay, go. All right, again, I'm Charlie Bailey. I'm a land use attorney and partner with law firm Williams Parker, and I, along with planner and engineer Peter Van Buskirk of Kimley Horn Associates, are here on behalf of the applicant, Sable Trace Development Partners, LLC. With us again this evening is Mark Geringer, principal with Sable Trace. We were last before you on May 2nd to discuss the redevelopment of a 207-acre former Sable Trace Golf and Country Club property. There are 4 applications before you, that alphabet soup as we were kind of jumbling them around, but they are the comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation of the property from recreation open space to activity center 9. At that hearing on May 2nd, because it's a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, the City Commission voted to approve it for transmittal up to the Department of Economic Opportunity in Tallahassee. That was done. The DEO, along with other state agencies and other local governments, including Sarasota County, have reviewed it, provided comments, provided those to Nicole. And of those comments that were received, only one really required any response. That was with regard that came from Swift Mud, asking about the regional water supply. We provide that additional information, which is in the staff report. And it's before you this evening for the second hearing or second reading, which would be the adoption hearing for the comp plan amendment. The second application that's before you is our text amendment to the ULDC to provide the development standards consistent with the comp plan amendment to Activity Center 9, to provide the development standards within your ULDC for this Activity Center 9. Back on May 2nd, the City Commission unanimously approved that text amendment on first reading, and it's back before you this evening for second reading. The third application before you is the rezone of the subject property from commercial recreation to planned community development. That was also approved by the City Commission on first reading unanimously and back before you on second reading. The fourth application before you was the Companion Development Master Plan approval that runs with the planned community development. The PCD zoning necessitates a DMP, Development Master Plan approval. That was after the deep vetting on May 2nd was continued to this evening. You did receive or provide us some comments. We received those comments from you that will result in resulted in some additional proffered conditions that we worked on with the guidance of staff, and I'm going to hit those at the end of my presentation. But that's the DMP is back before you for adoption. And then we also have, not before you, but we were prepared to discuss with you the Transportation Impact Fee Reimbursement Agreement relating to the Tuscola Boulevard Bridge. That was the crossing over the Cocoa Plum Waterway to be aligned with the project entrance on Greenwood. Although not before you this evening, we've continued to work with the city attorney and with staff to put that agreement in what we believe is a form that's ready to be presented to you, and we understand it's not being heard tonight, but will be presented to you, we're hopeful, in the first available hearing in September. But we're prepared to answer any questions you may have on it this evening in conjunction with our other applications. So on May 2nd, we did do a deep dive on the project, what we're proposing. We're not going to do that again this evening. It's a 207-acre project. It's got phase 1 and phase 2 are the residential components for low-density residential development, proposed for up to 500 dwelling units. Although the zoning around us allows anywhere from 4 units per acre up to 15 units per acre, our phase 1 and phase 2 residential areas are only proposed for just 2.89 units per acre. We also walk through the substantial 70-foot buffer that runs along the edge of the property with a berm and landscaping and the strategically located stormwater sites to enhance that compatibility. We've got the mixed-use component on Greenwood Avenue, where the location of the old clubhouse and situated on approximately 29 acres there on the southern portion of the project. In May, we also briefly ran through the history of Sable Trace Golf Course. It's closing in 2015. It's falling into foreclosure. My client, having purchased it in October 2017 and very quickly kind of getting right with the city and its neighbors by quickly mowing it, maintaining it, cleaning out the stormwater swales, paying past due city fees and city code enforcement fines to clean that up. Additionally, established a very important component of it was establishing contact with our neighbors and the leadership within the Sable Trace associations. Establishing that contact resulted in our project not really being planned, but it really was through all the meetings. You saw how it evolved. It was almost like a charrette process, shaping the form of the project, what buffers went where, and how they took shape. We also briefly discussed the zoning history of this property. In 2003, it was zoned RMF. It was rezoned, it was downzoned to its commercial recreation zoning that it presently has, which resulted in litigation. It was settled in 2005, resulted in the City Commission approving a plan for the project to allow a much more, we view as a more intense project of 619 or 614 dwelling units known as Valente at Sable Trace. Those 614 dwelling units were going to be in 19 multifamily buildings that would have been up to 4 stories in height. Of course, we're doing development that's going to be really more compatible, actually in large parts identical to the development that surrounds the property. Those with us hitting the Great Recession, those entitlements for Valente expired and provided the opportunity for the design of the project to kind of be reimagined and really done in what I view as a much more appropriate manner. So we kind of view this as the final happy chapter of the Sable Trace Golf Course redevelopment. Really, the only new information to kind of hit the what the City Commission did on the applications when we were last before you. And we received some comments back from you that resulted in us proffering some conditions. We met with Nicole. We also met with Chief Titus to kind of go through some of the comments that came up as a result of the discussion on May 2nd. And that's resulted in some revised conditions. And these are referencing these are the development master plan conditions that are contained on pages 15 and 16 of your staff report. And we're the first revision that came out of that was to condition 4, which we had a lot of discussion at the last hearing on the proposed agreement to construct the bridge, and as to when would that occur. And so we modified this condition to do 2 things. Really was to address that specifically, to say that the timing of the construction of the bridge will be established by the City Commission through the terms of the agreement itself. And the draft agreement that will eventually be presented to you in the very near future addresses that. And the second thing is Peter Van Buskirk had been working with Ben Newman and Jerry Traverso regarding the specific design requirement of the widths of the paths, the trails or the sidewalks on the side of the bridge. The reason that we struck 10 feet and said that provision or that term will be identified in the agreement is because there's some details to be worked out. Our plan is to construct 10-foot sidewalks, but it's been noted that those sidewalks on either end of the bridge connect to sidewalks that are much narrower. So we just wanted, ultimately it would be the city's decision, but that's why we've addressed that in this condition. The next proffered condition was a new condition. Again, this would be condition 9 to the DMP that would be tacked on to the end of the conditions that conclude on page 16 of the staff report. And we had some discussion regarding the turn lanes that are identified in the Kimley Horn Associates traffic impact analysis, and when those would be constructed. We went back and looked at it, confirmed that those are going to be constructed from the get-go. As soon as we make our driveway connections to Greenwood and Appomattox, each of those driveways will have the inbound turn lanes constructed. It's part of the same improvement. And we've gone ahead, and although that was the traffic impact analysis, we've gone ahead and set it in the development master plan to make sure that it's actually effectuated. The next item was a new condition 10 to the DMP, and we had some discussion regarding the mixed-use component at the entrance or the southern portion of the project, which it truly is going to be a mixed-use area, both phases. And but we've applied, there'll be some residential that will be permitted there, some assisted living facility, and some commercial, which will be that commercial that's permitted within the neighborhood commercial zoning district, I believe. And I believe Commissioner Carasone, I think identified wanting to make quite certain that if we were to put in a restaurant or a professional office use, that it was done in such a way that would ensure compatibility with the neighborhoods that are east and west of that mixed-use area on Greenwood. I believe it's Fairway Villas to the east and Linkside in the colony at Sable Trace to the west. And so what we've done is, so people feel strongly about perimeter walls, and so what we've done is crafted a condition we're not certain that commercial is going to go at the perimeter of the mixed-use area. And if commercial doesn't go at the edge of the mixed-use area, or if some commercial does, but it's designed so that the back-of-house operations aren't directed toward the neighbors, it may not be necessary to construct a wall for compatibility. So what we've done is recognizing that any commercial development within that area would have to go to the major site and development plan review process. We've established some criteria in that condition 10 that would say, at that time, we would have to demonstrate that any commercial use located at the perimeter is compatible by meeting each of these criteria, by examining the building height, the noise, the lighting, and other elements. And if based on professional staff reviewing it, they are satisfied that there is not a need for a wall, that the buffer and the location of the improvements alone are sufficient, then a wall would not be required. If, however, those criteria are not deemed met by professional staff, we would then have to provide that 8-foot wall to ensure that compatibility. So the wall would not be automatic, but it would be a tool in the staff's toolbox to apply for commercial development at the perimeter. The next was, I think it was Commissioner McDowell noted a letter from Chief Titus in our staff report that was generated after our first SRD meeting, SDR, Site Development Review. Wanting to sit down with us and kind of brainstorm and talk about some different ways we might deal with fire safety in this project. And we, Peter and I went and met with Chief Titus and with Fire Marshal Marietti and with Rob, Mr. Needy was there as well, and kind of walked us through. And what we've decided to do is the fire chief encouraged us to consider or incentivize providing fire sprinklers in our single-family and paired villas, single-family and two-family homes. And if we were able, there's not a code requirement that be done, but kind of using the carrot rather than the stick, it said that if we are able to provide, or if we in fact provide fire sprinklers in those residential units within phases 1 and 2, certain incentives will be available with regard to reducing the street width because you don't have to worry about fire access as much, providing additional distance between fire hydrants, allowing additional height of additional lengths for cul-de-sacs, and being eligible for consideration for fire rescue impact fee credit that would ultimately be presented to the City Commission. So we were excited to be part of this kind of crafting an incentive for fire rescue. The last of the items we talked about that we have addressed in working through it with Nicole Galehouse, we decided that this was actually something that was not appropriate for a DMP condition, but rather is a tweak that ought to be made or included into the text amendment to the Unified Land Development Code with regard to the standards for the mixed-use area. I believe it was either Mr. Tower or Mr. Blucher who expressed some concern about the multifamily, the form of the multifamily within the mixed-use area. And I think the concern was having the multifamily take the form of what was previously approved in Valente, which is a true multiplex, a multifamily building. And although multifamily is the term, is what these uses truly are, is defined by the city's ULDC. It's multifamily. The multifamily really is going to take the form of townhouses or stacked townhouses. And so what we've done is, with regard to the permitted uses under section 55-61B1H, where we list those permitted uses within the mixed-use area, we've said that we've eliminated low-density residential because it's not going to be single-family detached, but identified it as medium-density residential, and then gone through to describe the multifamily, define it, and limit it so that multifamily will be provided in the form of stacked townhouses. So those are each of those 5 conditions, the revised condition 4 to the DMP, the 3 additional conditions to the DMP, 9, 10, and 11, and the proposed revision to the ULDC text amendment are the 5 things that we've done, kind of the assignments that we were tasked with back on May 2nd, and very much appreciate Nicole and Scott working with us to refine these and bring them to you this evening for consideration. And we would ask that as you consider this and God willing, approve them here on second reading, that you would incorporate those proffered conditions into the development orders. Be happy to take any questions at this time or wait until after Nicole's presentation and public comment.
Yeah, we'll let staff go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Give the presentation. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Galehouse will now give the city presentation.
Good evening, Nicole Galehouse, Planning Division Manager, and I have been sworn. So I'll try to keep this short and sweet. For the comprehensive plan amendment, there were some scrivener's errors in the ordinance. Those have been corrected. It was transmitted to the state. We did receive responses from different state agencies. The Department of Economic Opportunity had no comment. Sarasota County said it does not conflict with the goals, objectives, and policies of their comprehensive plan. The Southwest Florida Water Management District provided technical assistance related to the regional water supply. They requested a potable water analysis. The applicant provided this. It's in your backup material, and our utilities department confirmed that they do have capacity. This potable water analysis will be provided with the transmittal package to the state upon adoption. Florida Department of Transportation provided technical assistance comments as well. Theirs were really more related to the city coordinating with FDOT for the future expansion of US 41, especially as it relates to multimodal needs, and encouraging and having a strong focus within the development on multimodal needs, which we have tried to encourage with, the multi-use paths along the bridge and within the development as well. And then Florida Department of Environmental Protection also had no comment, no objection to the petition. For the rezone, I believe there were just a couple scrivener's errors in the ordinance which have been corrected. For ordinance number 2019-09, the change is in line 108, which the applicant pointed out as the form of the multifamily within the mixed-use areas. And we think that this provides a good basis for what that multifamily will look like, so that you don't have, large apartment buildings basically within that area. The development master plan, as the applicant stated, we worked on the different conditions. Staff is comfortable, the applicant did a great job explaining those, so I won't go through them again, but staff is comfortable and agrees with all of these amendments and additions to the conditions on the project. That's all I have.
Okay. And applicant, do you have a rebuttal? Sounded very, very positive.
Mr. Mayor, could we get that on the record, please?
What?
That applicant has no rebuttal.
Applicant has no rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank
Staff
you.
has no rebuttal.
Okay. Do I have any public comment, Vice Mayor?
You already heard it, Mayor.
Okay. Oh, that's right. So now we're moving on to questioning. Commissioner Carson.
Where do I start? First, I guess, with my biggest heartburn, which is the development, mixed-use development, let's see, what was this? DMP 18071, where we talked about, and it's in the motion, requiring the timing of turn lanes and the requirements of the bridge timing as well. None of which do I see. What I hear is that there will be a future agreement brought to us. That's not what the motion said. So, my question is, where's the timing of both the turn lanes and the bridge?
The timing of the turn lanes is identified, it's on page 3 of the agenda, the legislative text for the DMP.
Yo, okay, that's funny.
It's the second bullet point.
Okay, hold on, I have to find it, we're talking about 5 different things, so I need to figure out which ordinance in the first place, which is the,
Where did you say, I'm sorry?
It's on page 3 of the legislative text for the DMP.
Which is
Second
what?
bullet point.
which is ordinance,
It's not an ordinance, it's the CCDMP 1871.
the second CC, ah, got it, okay. And it's on the 3rd page.
Commissioner McGill, you had something right.
Taking forever.
I read that, and I don't see when. It says what they're going to do.
Thank you.
But it doesn't
That's-
say when.
So
Is
in
it-
A, it's when they provide the project's entrance to Greenwood. So when they build the entrance on Greenwood, that's when you'll see those ones. And then for B, it's when they provide the entrance on Appomattox, that's when you'll see those ones. So
Hold on a
it's coordinated, instead of being like date specific, it's event specific.
No, and as it should be, but I would think that, then there should be a something that triggers that. Is it 20% build out, 30% build out, 5% build out? Is it immediate? Is it, I've seen it where some of these sit for 5, 10 years and none of the things that they promised ever come true, so.
Right, so the project entrance on Greenwood would be necessary to do even any work in there. So as the applicant stated, that would be done immediately when they start construction.
Okay, and Greenwood is associated with what, the turn signal?
With A, the eastbound to northbound left turn lane and westbound to northbound right turn lane.
Okay, that's turn lanes, okay.
Yes. And then for B, do you have an approximate time for the mathematics?
Again, for Director Charlie Bailey, at some point that, when we get a certain unit count, the city is going to mandate that we construct that second access to Appomattox. And when we construct that second access to Appomattox, we'll be constructing the turn lanes. Practically speaking, the reason we did it that way is because we obviously don't have a date certain, but you don't need the turn lanes before the driveway's there. It's designed, the permit plans that show the driveway connection to those roadways will have the turn lanes on them. It's not like a phase project, it's one project that will include the turn lanes necessarily.
So you're saying somewhere in here it says that when the second access to Appomattox, not Greenwood now, Appomattox, that turn lanes will be installed?
Yes, ma'am, when we construct Greenwood, that access, it must have turn lanes pertinent to it. And when we construct the access to Appomattox, it will have its turn lane pertinent to it, the westbound
Okay.
to southbound left.
Okay, and again, I mean, the turn lanes, got it. Was there something in here about a light? Wasn't there a conversation about a light?
41 and
We did,
Northport
yes, ma'am.
Boulevard.
We had conversation about whether a signal would be required at Greenwood and
That's what
Sumter.
it was, Greenwood and Sumter.
Yes, ma'am. And, you know, there was discussion as to whether that was appropriate, and I think it was based on the discussion, I think it was determined that I don't think we actually did this analysis, but I think the construction of the bridge will likely relieve that intersection of traffic.
Right, good point, okay. All right, so we go to the bridge, and where's the bridge trigger?
It's the subject of agreement. Again, the bridge is not required to serve this project. The project meets concurrency with the bridge or without the bridge, but it was something that it was raised by a city at our first SDR meeting, and we're happy to do that. We've provided the agreement that would specify the terms and timing for the construction of the bridge that was on the agenda this evening, but we think is really in final form, but we're prepared to discuss it with you at the next available hearing. But I think that condition 4, I don't have it in front of me.
All right, where are we at now? Which condition 4, under the,
The staff report.
well, which one we have?
Well, it's not in the staff report. It's as revised. Consistent with our discussion, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. We were eager to get the agreement in front of you and wish it had been before you on May 2nd. It wasn't, but that agreement is what dictates when the bridge is provided, and it's really in the sole discretion of the city commission. We stand ready to sign it just as soon as it can get in front of the board. You look at it, bless its terms, approve it, and sign it. And it requires my client, even though will be advance funding it, designing, permitting, and constructing it. And even though it's not tied to his project in terms of the wind, is what I'm hearing.
But it is tied to his project.
It's not.
Well,
No,
you
ma'am.
just said that the bridge is going to alleviate the need for a light on Greenwood and Sumter. That's number one. Number two, you did a traffic study in June. I mean, let's be realistic. So, 2,000 residents or 1,000 residents is going to impact a 2-lane road on Greenwood. So, I mean, let's be real. So the bridge is going to help with the
It'll be a
impact.
good thing for sure.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
I just want to be very clear on that.
Yeah, no,
Because
we
I
want
want-
it. We think it's a good thing, for sure.
Because I think that bridge has to have, that's, again, I go back to what are motions actually included, and there's nothing worse than having your motion be specific, only for the applicant to turn around and say, nah, I really don't like that. So, let's go back.
That's not what
and-
happened, yeah. In this case, I
Well, I'm
can
looking
assure
at a
you.
letter dated July 8th. So, and that's kind of aggravating just between you and I, who've known each other for extremely
right.
long time.
Well, I hope that nothing before you would even anyway suggest that we've been dragging our feet. We submitted the agreement months and months ago.
No, I don't mean to suggest that you're
Yeah.
dragging the feet. I'm suggesting that you didn't like the criteria that the commission created in their motion, so therefore you came back and said, no, I don't like that criteria, therefore we're not going to do it. We're going to find a way to get around it, or to postpone it, or to not do exactly to the letter of what that motion stated. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, now we are disappointed the agreement's not presented to you tonight because Peter Van Buskirk is ready to begin designing and permitting that bridge. And we have committed, although it's not before you, the agreement, even though it's not required to serve the project, my client is so committed to it, he has said, look, I will have that bridge completed before my 250th dwelling unit, 251st dwelling unit.
Is that in here somewhere?
It's in the development agreement that's not before you presently.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
it wasn't being slick and trying to hide anything. We're being transparent as all get out and wish that were before you. It's not, and it's just, it's the process. We've got
Well,
4
I got
applications
more.
and an agreement before you, yeah.
I got more. I mean, and the other one was, let me see here, it was, wrong page, it's right here.
After
Okay.
zoning hearings, I always feel like I've gone through my Senate confirmation
I got
process.
too many. Ordinance number 2019-09, where it says, amending the urban design standards pattern book to provide regulations for activity center 9. Oh, hell, it's not in here. Oh, I'm sorry, it is. It's 2019-09. And the motion states specifically the requirement of an 8-foot buffer around mixed-use commercial. And again, this is changed from what the commission directive and the motion was.
You don't have to approve it as written. You can mandate an 8-foot wall when we have commercial at
We
the
did.
perimeter. Okay. It's entirely within your discretion. We made our best effort to craft a condition that we thought met the intent of the majority of the city commission. And it's ultimately before you tonight to decide how you want to approve it. We submit to your will.
Summary of conditions that will be reviewed for a second reading, including examining the timing in the turn lanes, reviewing the need for a signal warrant analysis, which you're saying we don't need, right?
That's right.
Okay, for the intersection of Greenwood and Sumter, and the form of a multifamily with the mixed-use component.
Which is addressed in
Which
this
is
ordinance.
addressed.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's another thing, is that while you talk about, where is that amended version, for the, I believe it was for the comp plan. Too many papers.
It's hard to do
Too
this all
many
at
papers.
once.
Wow. Where you break down the uses and you added the multifamily use.
Oh, well, you know.
Oh, here it is, here it is. The permitted principal uses, and you added the medium density in there.
We didn't add it, it was in there previously. We struck low density, and as a result, it resulted in us just capitalizing the M in medium density.
Okay, does that allow for an attached commercial, attached dwelling unit to a commercial property? So in other words, like, if you plan on doing, say, some sort of a commercial property plaza, let's just say a plaza. You have a restaurant on the bottom story, you want to do maybe a apartment condo on the top story.
The live-work unit of upper story
Right,
residential.
would this allow for that? Because I think that you
Well-
might find that that's a
Yeah. No,
viable
well,
option.
if the change we made wouldn't affect that one way or the other, because it relates straight to, it was just simply to define more clearly the form of the multifamily. And I don't know if it does of the non-residential uses that are listed, if those, we kind of adopted the neighborhood commercial NC zoning. And so if that use, I suppose if that use is
So I
permitted in
guess
C.
that's a question for you, ma'am. Would it allow for them, if they choose to have commercial business in that mixed use, will they be able to put, you know, a apartment building or a condo on the second floor up top? Because I know they're talking about multi-level floors, and,
As
because
long
that
as each unit
will be
has
mixed
a
use.
direct exterior access, then yes, they will.
Okay, all right, without having to change this?
Right.
Okay. All right, so I go back to the 8-foot and some other things that we had given commission direction for that are not included. And I guess, you know, my final question is, how do we approve this when the agreement's not before us? And the agreement was kind of part and parcel to the things that we had required in our motions. You know, that's a concern of mine. City attorney, you got your look of, I can give you an answer.
I can. I've not been sworn in. I'm not sure if I need
Uh-oh.
to be.
Does she have to be sworn in?
You're not
I
sure if you
mean,
need to be?
I mean, you know, just for, you know.
I don't know why she'd be sworn in.
Just do it for good measure.
She's sworn at. I don't know why she had to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge to help you God?
Yes.
Just for the fun of it, I swear.
didn't know I had
It would be lonely.
a partner in crime behind me. One of the conditions that both the applicant and staff had spoken about address the agreement and the building of the bridge, and then provide for, if the agreement is not reached, what will happen. Here you also have requirements in our code that set forth what is required to be done to enter into this type of agreement. It's an agreement to reimburse impact fees and to fund the bridge that way. So, you know, my understanding from the testimony that we've heard is that the agreement, that the city can't, there could be some legal problems with the city trying to require that the bridge be built as part of the development master plan when there's something, when there's an alternative that's been identified that could be done. So at this point in the development master plan, I would caution against trying to make that a requirement. The language of the condition that's in there is language that has come through the city attorney's office for review. And again, provides for the preference, I guess, to enter into this agreement to build the bridge. But we can't bind the city commission on behalf of the city any more than we can bind the applicant by means of this development master plan, and our own city code provides the mechanism for approving this agreement. So it is a separate step.
But in the same token, we have a traffic study that may not have warranted any of these improvements. And I know while we're saying that the bridge wasn't warranted due to the traffic study may in essence be flawed. So we could turn around and say we need an updated traffic study. Therefore, that would turn around and either say it needs a bridge or it needs a traffic signal.
I couldn't speak to the validity of the traffic study, but certainly the bridge has to result from an impact to the development in order for us to utilize the impact fees to reimburse the developer for the cost of the bridge. So there does have to be a correlation.
And on the impact fees, I really didn't want to get into this because I know we pulled it, but just for my edification.
And also just for full, clarification, it wasn't pulled until the meeting, so it has been properly noticed.
Right, oh, good point, okay.
She with us.
Good point.
The commission can't make any determination on it, but I don't see any legal problem with discussing generally what the terms of the agreement are that's been attached in the backup.
Well, the impact fees, don't they increase because they've changed their use of the area as opposed to what it was before? It was residential, and I don't know who would answer this. It was residential prior, now we're having a little mixed-use commercial portion of it. Won't then increase the requirement of impact fees that are going to be due?
The impact fee calculations that have been done as part of that agreement take into account the uses that are proposed within this development.
And they're higher than what is currently, I guess is what I'm trying to
So
get
if you
at.
were to build just residential on there?
If you
Or,
were, I guess, yeah, both. If you were to build just residential or keep it the way it is.
if you keep it the way it is, you're not collecting any more new impact fees because
Mhm.
that's collected at the time of CO.
Right.
So you have to build something around to get that. If you were to do just residential, I mean, to give an example, the single family is, 1928 for the transportation impact fee. The medical office is 73.45. So,
So we're going to see a higher impact fee, and that I'm trying to wrap myself around the payment of a bridge. Are we gonna owe anything after the
No.
impact fees are paid back?
No, that's a good
is what
question. I
I'm
mean,
trying to get at.
Now, to answer some of the question you were wrestling with on the agreement, there's not going to be, the source of funding for the bridge is going to be this project. It's going to be impact fees, development within this project, which is going to pay substantial road impact fees. Nicole's right. Right now, as it sits, it's a blighted former 18-hole golf course with an empty clubhouse. No impact fees are due because you only pay impact fees for new development. So this project, the way the agreement is crafted, my client would be designing, permitting, and constructing the bridge. He would be reimbursed through impact fees paid for the Central Park at Northport project. It would be the source of funding would be this district, impact fee district. And so as fees are paid, the city it can only reimburse to the extent that fees have been paid, and you would only be required to reimburse as fees are paid. At the rate they're paid, would be reimbursed on a quarterly basis. And the impact fee calculation, because of the form of the development tables, and the city having recently last month increased the impact fees, not only is there enough to pay for the design, permitting, and construction of the bridge, for that transportation improvement, that system improvement, but there'll be additional fees collected on top of that. So you'll have enough to pay for the bridge and then have some more money to spend on other improvements.
That's what I was worried about, is that we would have a deficit, because remember that if this bridge isn't built in a year, every year that the bridge isn't built, the more it costs to construct.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So you wait, say, 3 years before you build the bridge, but yet your impact fees are still at this amount. And so my worry is that, okay, 3 years later, we're in a deficit, and now we owe you on top of the impact.
I can tell you, your staff was very conservative on that, and they looked at, and we got down to the minutia, the granular stuff, like, okay, that's your engineer's estimate of cost, Peter, but you ain't building the bridge today, right? You're gonna have to design and permit it. It's gonna be maybe a year before you commence construction. Let's do an adjustment to make sure that the numbers work out right.
Well,
And that's
don't build a
information.
sidewalk, because it takes 5 years, apparently.
So all of that, it's all buttoned up in the agreement for the bridge. Ultimately, it's up to y'all whether legally, I can't speak for the city attorney, but we worked on it. I feel like legally it's buttoned up. It's just a business decision whether you want the bridge or don't want the bridge.
Yeah, because the bridge was proffered as part of the first reading, so that's why I assumed that there will be a timing implementation in this particular approval. And when I didn't see it, that it was actually contingent on an agreement that has yet to come before us, that's
Well,
concerning.
this is unique in that doing an agreement like this is not at all unusual to me. I mean, we do them all the time, but what's unusual about this improvement is that in other projects, it's usually an improvement is required. A project I'm working on triggers an improvement, and the local government perhaps wants some more bells and whistles, or recognizes that the project is only a proportionate share of it. In this case, we were very conservative in that the traffic impact analysis does not need to be redone. That was belt and suspenders. We analyzed it with the bridge, we analyzed it without the bridge. And in both instances, the project does not trigger a need for a bridge. That said, we did proffer it, and what we proffered, is important to note, what we proffered was the willingness to construct the bridge pursuant to an agreement under which the city would reimburse my client for the cost associated with design, permitting, and constructing it. Because it is not needed. You hear the phrase rational nexus. There is no rational nexus between the need for the bridge and the impact of the project.
Okay, can I just ask the city attorney one final question, and I'll move on? So are you comfortable that the bridge timing is addressed, it will be addressed in the agreement?
The bridge timing is addressed in the agreement, and you can look at it in the backup that's been provided for this meeting.
Okay.
And it does provide
In the
that
impact fee?
in the impact fee reimbursement agreement. It's been pulled from the agenda, but it's on the agenda, and the backup is in your system. And it does provide the bridge will be built by the 200, well, I guess,
It was-
before the 251st.
Okay.
Not because there was something wrong with the agreement. The schedule of the costs attached to it,
Was old.
there was an old schedule, so we pulled it because of conversations we've had of not providing you stuff either at the meeting or within 24 hours of the meeting. So in order to do that and comply with those requirements, that's why I pulled the item. The agreement itself was fine.
Okay.
It's
All
been
right.
through legal, staff has, and as the applicant mentioned, yeah, we negotiated it. We made sure that the fees in there were very conservative to our favor, because we didn't want to do exactly what you're saying is, say a bridge today is $1.5 million, and say, all right, well, in 3 years, it'll still be $1.5 million. No, we put cost escalators in there, and we're still to the good.
And then on top of that, and so when it does come before you and you have the proper backup, you'll see that calculation, and I'm sure you'll have question and answers about that as well.
I hope not.
You know, but we also put a maximum in the agreement. I mean, we're going to reimburse the actual cost of impact fees
Gotcha.
up to a maximum amount.
Yeah.
So
And
we're not
then-
on the hook for just whatever the bridge might
Whatever the
cost.
bridge may cost,
But,
okay.
and, you know, staff has worked carefully on this. The finance department, the city engineer has worked on this, legal,
Okay.
NBS.
That's what I needed to know.
Thank you,
know.
Commissioner McDowell.
Thank you.
Since we're talking about the bridge, so is the developer going to not only do the bridge, but all the other turn lanes that are required or recommended in the traffic analysis?
Those are required. We have to build them and pay for them.
And I'm not just talking about the ones at the entrances to the facility. I'm talking about the ones like on Sumter, on Appomattox to Northport Boulevard, Northport. I'm talking about around the complex. There's a bunch of them in this traffic analysis that's, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're only accounting for 2.
For 3 at the entrances of the project, right? Those that are identified, the additional ones that are off-site, and Christopher Hatton, a professional engineer with Kimley Horn and traffic planner, can talk to that. But those additional turn lanes are identified as being needed. The build-out of the project, whatever the build-out year is, it's anticipated that warrants would be met for those additional turn lanes based on background traffic, just general traffic in general, and are not triggered by this project. So I don't know if
Wasn't there a time frame? like
There's no
6
time
months?
frame though, and I'm looking for the verbiage somewhere in some document that says, besides those 3 that you're mentioned, 2 or 3 that you're mentioned in one of those conditions, where is it mentioned that the other turn lanes will be done at X time?
Good evening. My name is Christopher Hatton with Kimley Horn and Associates. I'm a registered professional engineer. As Charlie stated, we have actually evaluated, and when we did that for the traffic study, we had evaluated turn lanes at each of the intersections, specifically the ones that you're speaking of, the 3, and we talked to Jerry and actually did a detailed analysis. And what, as Charlie was speaking about, was that we did what we do existing conditions analysis. We do a background, that's without the project, and then we do a total traffic conditions. The 3 off-site turn lanes were triggered by background conditions. And as per the Community Planning Act of 2011, improvements that are required per background conditions are not the requirement of an applicant when moving forward. So we provided that background information on June 25th to Jerry, which he reviewed, and I followed up with him with a phone call. So those 3 off-site, and I've got a memo that I could submit in the record if needed, was evaluated, again, in terms of the Community Planning Act of 2011. shown that they were triggered per background conditions and therefore not the requirement of the applicant.
Will you please state for the record whether you've been sworn?
I have been sworn, yes. Thank you.
City manager or staff or somebody, I'm looking at the traffic analysis, and it's clearly stating that it says, yes, full right turn lanes are warranted, full left turn lanes are warranted.
Yes.
So I don't understand what you're stating.
But they are warranted in the background for, that was the additional analysis that we did as part of the traffic requirement that we worked on with Jerry. They are required, but they're not required at the point, basically, that we were triggered. We were actually evaluating for the existing, and we evaluated them for the background conditions. Again, that's the background condition, which is without the project. They were triggered back during the background conditions. So they were triggered even before our project. So again, per the Community Planning Act of 2011, when turn lanes, roadway widenings, et cetera, are triggered as part of the background conditions, they are not the requirement of a development moving forward.
I
mean, we did the study and we also worked with Jerry on that. So they are, yes, they're absolutely 100% triggered, but they're triggered in the background. We do not trigger them. So, and again, that's, as part of coming out of the recession, part of the lot of legislation that was created. That was part of one of the pieces of legislation that was created in Tallahassee. And again, it is one of those things that basically things that have been, I guess, like I said, in this case, triggered by background conditions to not necessarily be burdened by developments going forward.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm looking for the words that you're using of background conditions, and I am not
If you look at
seeing.
page
Yeah.
19 of the traffic study, I found an example. I was trying to find something while you're talking to point you to that. The end of it, where the conclusion where it lists those different intersections, that's for future total conditions. So prior to that, it kind of splits all of that out as what's part of the development and what are the background conditions. So one of the pages where it talks about the background traffic conditions is page 19.
And I can provide into the record the analysis or the further justification that we did with Jerry back and provided him back on June 25th. I can put that into the record.
When did you do that? I'm sorry, what date did you say?
Right. Yeah, as Peter was saying, I guess just trying to get in more simplistic terms, like I said, whether or not this project was built or not, those turn lanes would be triggered. So this again, whether or not there's any traffic from this, those 3 off-site turn lanes are required. So whether this project is approved or not, those 3 are still going to be needed. That's oftentimes done for the purposes of the local jurisdictions, so they know the needs, usually to focus on including those type of improvements, like such in the CIPs, et cetera. But those are required with or without this
You
project.
can't hold them accountable for things
Correct.
that are already,
That
I
is
got
correct.
you now.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So even if this project wasn't here, those 3 turn lanes would be required.
So if the bridge does not get approved, just go into what if. What if the bridge doesn't get approved? What turn lanes are you going to be responsible for doing? Because I'm looking at that, and it's showing me, I think there's like 5 of them or 6 of them, not counting the 2 that you've already mentioned.
Again, the ones that we are required are the ones, the 3 that Mr. Bailey mentioned, the 2 that we've already talked about on Greenwood, and the 1 at Appomattox on our project driveway. The 3 off-site, the 2 at Appomattox and Northport Boulevard, and at Appomattox and Sumter, those are, again, existing needs in terms of meeting thresholds for turn lanes right now.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, can I ask, what was that third one? I got the Greenwood, and then I got the Appomattox.
The off-site ones are Appomattox northbound, right at Northport, and then Appomattox westbound left.
No, I'm not talking about what is pretty much already required, but what is that third one you said that you're required to
The
do?
2 at Greenwood and then the 1 westbound left at
Oh,
Appomattox.
2 at Greenwood, okay.
Yes, both
Thank
an
you.
eastbound, yeah, eastbound right and then westbound.
I have in the ordinance itself, if you go to ordinance number 2019-09, on page 3, I know you changed from low density to medium density. I'm looking at 55-61, and it says low density is 85% and medium density is 0. What percentage is going to be medium density? And what percentage is going to be low?
Where are you looking at the?
Ordinance number 2019-09, page 3, section 5561, where it says permitted principal uses and structures. It gives a breakdown of the percentages allowable land use.
Correct. So the low-density residential is the 500 units that are within the single-family phases of development. The multiple family dwellings would be part of the mixed-use phase of development, that 15% that's included there.
But if I'm reading correctly, it says here, the parameter for percentages of allowable use permitted by the comp plan are as follows, and it says 0 for mixed use.
Medium.
I'm sorry, for medium use.
So if you go into ordinance 2019-07, line 94 is a footnote to that 15% that's listed there for mixed use. And the footnote spells that out. It says medium density residential is 10 units per acre, professional office and commercial floor area ratio is 0.5. So it allows for flexibility without limiting them to a maximum percentage. It's limiting to there's a total number of units that are limited within the mixed use area per the comp plan. And then the density, so it's 10 units per acre is the most. Then within ordinance 2019-09, we set the form of that. It's a multiple family dwelling that can't have more than 8 units in the building, has to have exterior access for each unit.
So if our comp plan says 0 medium density, how can we allow them medium density? I guess is another way to.
The comp plan doesn't say 0. The comp plan says 15% mixed use. The 15% mixed use has a footnote that says it's allowed to have medium density residential.
Gotcha. So the medium density is actually not just medium density, it's mixed in with mixed use.
It's mixed in with the mixed use.
Okay. Where in all of these documents does it say 500 maximum dwelling units, 100 maximum mixed-use units?
That is in line 116 of ordinance 2019-07, policy 2.9.2.
I'm sorry, what line?
116.
Yeah, I have been looking over for that. Do we need to include that with the DMP because this is with the comp plan? Do we need to include that words with the DMP?
No, we make sure it complies with the comp plan when we review the development.
Bear with me, I got just a couple more. If you go to these brick pavers, and it's in the exhibit to 2019-09, and it's the urban pattern book, are they putting in, it says all pedestrian crossings on collector arterial roads shall have these brick pavers. Is Greenwood a arterial or collector road?
If you give me a second, I can find that information out for you. It's a collector? I was going to say, that was my gut, was that it's a collector, but I believe so.
The remediation for the arsenic. I know we spent a great deal of time talking about arsenic the last meeting. I really won't go into that detail again. But our stormwater engineer, Ms. Wong, had recommended that the arsenic remediation and removal only be done between December and June. That was her recommendation, to have the least impact on the waterways. And I am wondering, based on that recommendation, where would we add that as a condition?
If you
Would that
want-
be where, in that staff report where we had listed all those conditions?
Yes, sorry, I'm looking for which one would make the most sense if we wanted to add that.
That's something we would need to discuss, honestly. I don't recall that specific requirement.
It wasn't a requirement, sir. It was a suggestion.
recommendation from Elizabeth.
It was a suggestion by our stormwater management, our stormwater engineer, Ms. Wong.
Or I remember you saying.
Because remediation is going to occur concurrently with the development of the site. And if we're imposing conditions on when bridges need to be built and so forth, the bridge is going to be paid for by that's something we would need to talk about in terms of if we're going to limit when the site work and remediation can occur. Because that wasn't something that we got talked in on detail or analyzed with Ms. Wong
Well, it's more.
during or outside the hearing. That would be news to us, and that would be problematic for the development of the project.
Yeah, and Ben Hilton, ACT Environmental Adjuster. I've been sworn in for the record, professional engineer with ACT. We do remediation projects all over the state of Florida, 365 days a year. I could potentially understand why somebody may have a concern, but as far as those concerns go, I can tell you the belt and suspenders approach that we take when we remediate sites. The time of year of doing this work, yes, that we are in the rainy season now, and we do have issues that we contend with, but we have mitigation factors for that. We have best management practices that get implemented. So,
I believe the last time we had this conversation and you made that statement, I
Yes,
said,
ma'am.
I do not want Northport to be the next Aaron Brockovich story.
no.
And that's why
Absolutely.
when Ms. Wong made the recommendation, I held that to be she's the expert in that kind of thing too. You know, with the stormwater part of it. And it was a concern of hers. So,
Are you relying on, was this, is this in a written memo, or was this testimony at the hearing?
it was at the hearing, sir, when she said it at the first reading.
Right. I believe we discussed the potential timing of the development as well and determined that it's probably going to work out in that time frame on its own, naturally, based on how it's progressing. But I do.
Yeah, we have done, and it's about Aaron Brockovich, golf courses are developed throughout Sarasota County, left and right. Marty Black and I worked on Sunrise Golf Course redevelopment, Forest Lakes Golf Course redevelopment. So they're done all day long, and because whether you do it in February, it could rain in February, and so Ben can explain that regardless of what time of year you are doing remediation, you have equipment and systems in place to ensure that there is no dewatering, that stormwater and the groundwater that is revealed through excavation does not leave the site. And if you're interested in hearing about how we will ensure that water does not leave the site with arsenic, we can talk about that. But there is no scientific basis for precluding remediation to occur outside the months you stated.
Yeah, and even prior to the last hearing, we had probably an hour-and-a-half conversation with Ms. Wong over different ways that we can handle groundwater, rainwater, et cetera. And we had a myriad of solutions that we've actually implemented. So I'll be honest with you, if it was said at the last commission meeting, I missed it. I think most of our team probably missed that statement in there. However, with that said, prior to the last commission meeting, we went in detail and gave her examples of how we've done this. So for what that.
And I don't know if this, one other thing that we did do in direct response to feedback from Ms. Wong, which is something I've never done on any other project, was to ensure that before the local government permit is issued, in this case the infrastructure plan that would authorize site work, dirt to be moved and so forth, we cannot do that until we have received our site remediation work plan. From FDEP. And so that plan, we've got a condition in our DMP that provides that everything we send DMP, or the FDEP, every submittal, everything we receive back from FDEP must be shared with the city of Northport so that Elizabeth Wong is with us every step of the way and making sure the i's are dotted and t's are crossed. And until she's confident that the i's are dotted and t's are crossed, we don't get our infrastructure plan that would authorize us to perform that work. That's the measure we put in place.
I believe this will be my last question, Mayor. How tall are the stories going to be again on these buildings, whether it's residential or if it's a mixed use?
The maximum height, Northport measures height in feet, and in Phase 1 and Phase 2, the maximum height in the residential area is 35 feet, which is the very same height of the surrounding existing development. They're zoned RSF1 and can go 35 feet, so we'll match them, won't exceed what they've got. And in the mixed-use area, I believe it's 45 feet. Is that right? Or 50 feet? 50 feet?
50 feet for the senior living. Everything else is 35.
So we adhere to the 35-foot height limitation in mixed use, except the mixed use area, except for an assisted living facility where that could be 50 feet. And the reason we think that's appropriate is the existing Sable Trace development to our east and west of the mixed use area are multifamily, and in those areas you can have up to 70 feet. Those are developed as multifamily. But the assisted living facility will be compatible with that, and thus we've limited it to 50 feet.
And the surrounding area, they're only 2 stories tall now, even though they can go to 70.
Right.
They're only 2 stories now.
Right, correct. And so we'll be in there, the majority of the development within the mixed-use area will be limited to 35 feet with the exception of the assisted living facility, which can go to 50
Just
feet.
because you can go to the 35 and 50, what are your plans to actually go to? How many stories are you planning to go to based on?
An assisted living facility would be how many stories? 2 to 3 stories in the assisted living facility.
Peter Van Buskirk with Kimley Horn Associates have been sworn. The majority of any of the neighborhood commercial would not be any more than 1 story. 2-story commercial doesn't work in Florida. Assisted living, I'm working on one right now that's going through review in the city over here next on the other side of City Hall. They'll have 1, 2, and 3-story sections of their building. Our medium density residential is defined as being 1 or 2-story. So the tallest building you would have would be an assisted living facility, and the maximum there would be 3 stories with a total height of 50 feet. And that is the way that's measured would be to the peak of the roof.
Good. Commissioner Luke.
I want to start off by stating that I haven't seen anything that has been brought forward that you guys haven't kept your word on. To me, that says a lot for the developer and you guys. You do your very best to fulfill your word and the obligations, and thank you for that. I will follow that up with an apology. We did talk about how we want things brought to our commission in a timely manner, some of those being backup material. I do know that I was told this item was going to be pulled more than 24 hours ago. And so I don't understand why that new chart or that new thing couldn't have been slipped in. You don't even have to have backup material legally put out in an agenda, so it could have been replaced. And a lot of this discussion that we have going on tonight would be of no avail. You said you would bring the bridge project at the same time. I knew that it could not be in these documents, that it had to be a separate document, but you stated that you would bring it at the same time, and it was attempted on your part. So I want to acknowledge that and tell you I'm sorry that it got pulled because of trying to be safe for us as commissioners. But the way I see it, it could have been brought forward. So thank you. The comment, I was the seconder on the motion, and the comments about the wall was a compromise.
You have a question, Ms. Lee?
I'm headed toward it, but I know there is leeway for everybody else who has spoken up here too. So I'm going to request a leeway to that because I saw the wall as being only for the commercial, but there was the buffer if it was not commercial. I see you working toward that. It might be a little twist to that, but I see you working toward it. The traffic study followed all the standards that goes on. The Sumter and Greenwood that we talked about, a light, we talked about, that's on the back of the city because it's horrible right now. And I mean, I know I've talked with Nicole about possibly a roundabout at that area. So I know that then brings us down to what you have the changes in, being what you discussed with the fire department. That was brought up, and you again have followed through as far as I see. My question, thank you for allowing me, page 13. In the presentation, it freaked me out, and I sent an email right away when I came across that. Ms. Nicole, would you please tell us why that is in, page 13 is in that presentation, please?
The presentation, it was in the staff presentation. The presentation has not been amended since first reading, and so we are now using the same agenda item for second reading. We're just adding to it for second reading. And so it didn't disappear for second reading, so it's still kind of hanging out there. But there is no gas station coming. So I will say that one more time for the record, no gas station.
Thank you.
On this property.
Appreciate the bearing with me.
Commissioner Carestano, this will be our last little round here.
Yeah, one quick question. We talked about the 8-foot wall and it being part of the buffer plan. Can you explain to me where exactly that is included, the language that it addresses it? It says the development plan as far as a DMP condition 10, but I'm looking at the development master plan and I don't.
It would need to be added at this hearing as a new condition. It's in the backup material that way. Just like all the conditions in the letter would need to be added.
Is that a number, I think 12 then?
Where are the conditions listed?
No, that would
Let's
be
put
10.
it that way.
The conditions are in the staff report.
Yeah,
And it is shown in the buffer plan, within the pattern plan as an optional wall. So the condition sets forth what that option is.
Okay. How do I change it to be not an optional wall? That it's going to be either an 8-foot wall or a buffer that is equivalent to an 8-foot wall?
So that, if I remember correctly, the conversation was to have the buffer from commercial within the mixed use area.
Correct.
So the buffer plan, you wouldn't want to amend the option because it's optional if it's commercial and it's or, you know, if it's
Residential.
if for residential use, it's not there. So it does need to remain in the buffer plan as optional. The
Correct.
condition is where you're going to put that in. And so the
Which
applicant.
would be an A, correct? Ordinance number 2019-07?
No, it's on the DMP.
I'm not sure where it's going, but it would be that, Nicole's right, it would be condition 10 to the DMP, proposed condition 10.
I'm still trying to find which one is the DMP. We've got too many. Is it A?
It's on page 16 of the staff report.
Yes, first
It's first thing.
Thank you. That's the one I was actually on, so, okay. And it's under the staff report, right? Okay. Okay. That's what I was trying to get at. Thank you. If it ever pulls up. That was my question. Yeah.
Commissioner McDowell, 5 more minutes, and then we're going to move.
The
Close an ordinance.
second emergency access, when is that being built? Because I remember the conversation about the second emergency access off of Appomattox. When is that going to be built?
Are you
Because
talking
I didn't
the
see
one that's
that
not
in.
the full access?
No, it's going to be a full emergency access. Well, full, meaning full for vehicles and for the emergency personnel.
Okay, so the primary access off of Appomattox. Sorry, just want to
Okay.
clarify which one we're talking about. you want to
Right.
speak to the timing of that?
Yeah, Peter Van Buskirk again. The timing of the Appomattox entrance would be basically as needed, and there'll probably be a couple of things that would trigger it. One is we needed to support the development, and it may get built before, working with the city, staff would say, we're not going to permit another phase of lots until you build that access point, and then we would have to build it. So I would almost anticipate we may actually build it ahead of time, because we've got that, I'll call it a third emergency access, if you will, that exists today. That was the old maintenance road in and out of the golf course. So we have that to utilize as an emergency access. So that would most likely be our temporary construction emergency access, in case fire rescue would have to get in and out of the property, and for whatever reason, one of the other entrances was blocked, or let's say the one in Appomattox isn't built, although you can still access through it anyway. They do drive in and out of that area today. But to answer your question, we'll always have one on Appomattox, permanent, paved surface with turn lanes and the gating and so forth would be built either as we feel it's needed, or when staff during the infrastructure review says you're going to have that in place by X time.
Can we condition this that at so many COs that it be required, whether it be just an emergency at that point or if it's a full access?
I don't know that we could do that on the fly without having something to back up the need for that number.
Right.
I just don't want 10 years from now having the same problem that we're having with Jockey Club or Charleston Park with an emergency access and you have everything. Because right now, there's only one way in this thing, right now, and that's on Greenwood Avenue. And you're wanting to put 600 homes or dwelling units and commercial. There's one way in, one way out.
The homes wouldn't get built without that. I can guarantee our infrastructure.
You can assure that, but unless it's in writing, we have no way to enforce it.
Code.
The code would be part of it. I'm trying to think if there's a way you could craft something.
I'm looking for a trigger point, that's all I'm looking for.
I mean, I could tell you from personal experience on a different project, we not only meet the city's ULDC, but we also have to meet the NFPA that's applied by Scott Titus. And that does provide multiple means of access for projects with X number of dwelling units. We have to provide a fully functional, we will off of Greenwood initially, but at some point the fire marshal's going to say, look, you can't have another CO until you provide a secondary access, whether it's the fully functional access on Appomattox or not. So the code addresses those things.
Code doesn't give a trigger point, it just says that each development shall have two, when possible, 2 access points when possible.
But we've got a plan that shows 3, the 2 fully functional. It is possible in this case, and we're going to do it. We've got one on Appomattox, we've got one on Greenwood, and we've got a third access, which will be emergency only on Appomattox, that exists today.
I think I'll throw out a round number here, because I think this is when I would foresee that entrance will be needed for the functionality of the project, is 300 units in the single-family development.
There's only, Chief, can you help me out here?
Scott Titus for the Fire Rescue District. Actually, yes, I was sworn. Thank you. Scott Titus for the Fire Rescue District, Fire Chief. What he's saying is absolutely correct. By code and the ULDC, it is required. As they will continue to go through this process and as this property develops, they will be going back through review. They will be meeting with fire marshal. They will be meeting with city staff. We've been very happy with conversations that we've had and have no reason to believe this is, tonight doesn't complete the project. So just because that's not there, as they move forward, we will absolutely have that requirement. There is that temporary access right now that has been there to get back in, so that gives us access. They've also been amenable to talking about some things with the introduction, which, as you saw, is some of the proffered possibilities, fire sprinklers, which we think add some added protection to the community, and some other possibilities that we're really excited about. So at this point, we're very comfortable with moving forward at this point in the project.
But thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Getting ready to move on. You got another question? Okay. Thank you, guys. We are going to move on to closing arguments.
Mr. Mayor, if I
yes.
may just as a point to clarify the record, unless I misheard, I understood one of the applicant's witnesses from Kimley Horn to indicate that he was putting a document into the record, but I didn't see that document placed with the clerk or circulated to the board. So I just want to make sure that either comes into
Absolutely.
evidence or that there's a statement that it's not.
What is that?
So, yeah, thank you, I appreciate that very much, Ms. Layton. It's, so that this is the document that Mr. Hatton referenced, which is his June 25, 2019 memo, actually from Ken Sue, his colleague at Kimley Horn, to Jerry Traverso, that supported, further amplified what was contained in the traffic impact analysis. So, thank you, okay, part of the record.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we are going to move on to closing arguments. We have no grieved or affected persons. So, Ms. Gelhaus, do you have a closing? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, applicant, do you have a closing argument?
So I'm surprised, are there no public speakers?
Nope.
I'm
Well,
not
we have no
inviting it, I'm not
aggrieved-
trying to, am I tempting fate?
No, we have no aggrieved parties, and that's where we're at.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, but are there any members of the public that will be speaking to it as well?
There is, but I'm not going to do it just yet.
Okay, I have no closing argument. I would like to be able to respond to any public comment, but I have
don't understand why
nothing
this is
to.
getting so confusing. Yes, ma'am.
I don't either, because I thought I heard you earlier say we did not have public comment.
Just came in
No, I
just.
said there's no aggrieved persons.
Yes, but according to our process, public comment should have already been taken prior to
Oh,
closing
I am
argument.
so sorry.
And I thought I
You
understood
are
you say
right.
there was none.
So the confusion is on my part. I'm
But they
so
just
sorry.
came in.
This just came in less than
Right.
like 2 minutes ago.
Then we're past that point in the process.
Oh, okay.
If the commission
All
would
right.
like to entertain it, I would suggest that you do so before the applicant's closing argument, because the applicant's attorney is correct. He should have the ability to respond to the
I
public
got you.
comment.
I thought that was only for aggrieved
Yeah,
parties.
and I could be
No,
off
the
on my-
public comment is for any speakers. That's the
No,
closing
but
public hearing portion.
I
thought
thought,
the rebuttal was.
yeah, the
only
rebuttal
for
was for aggrieved parties,
Go
was what
ahead
I
and
thought
let's
that was
listen
for.
to the public comment
Right,
and
Mr.
allow.
Mayor. And you don't have to allow public comment
Oh,
at this
okay, I'm gonna
at this
wait
time.
then.
Well, if there is public comment, it needs,
I am so confused.
now.
All right,
let me
all right, so we
We've
missed
already-
public comment, so I don't even have to take it. If I choose to, I can, right?
well, you did call for public comment and there was none at that time. So.
Right.
That's
So-
right.
So now I don't have to
That's
take it,
correct.
but if the board chooses, then we can. But I can choose to do this after the closing argument.
Well, you can choose to do it, you could choose to, but I would recommend that you not, because our due process that's written into our code provides that public comment occurs prior to the applicant's closing argument. If you take the public comment.
But it
after
also
the-
happens prior to the questions, and we've already done that.
Well, that's right, Mr. Mayor, but if you just allow me to finish, it might provide clarity, and that is that if you wait until after the applicant speaks to allow the public to speak, then the applicant can't rebut or speak to the public's comment.
All right, well, then
And
I-
that's part of the due process.
Okay.
That's written in
No.
here to protect the applicant.
No, absolutely.
So I always recommend erring on the side of giving the applicant
Sure.
more due process rather than
I
less.
guess in my mind, that would be the aggrieved party that he would be responding to, not a public comment. So that was in my mind. So
So in
let's take the public
short,
comment.
we can take the public comment and then have them rebut if needed.
So we'll take the public comment. Ms. Nancy Hill? I'm sorry.
But I got you.
Attorney,
Well,
my mind
this is
was
why I
on.
want to redo this, because it's
I know,
very
this
My
thing's
name
on.
is Nancy Hill, and I have not been sworn.
Swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and of the
I do. The only comment I have, and I should have actually waited till the end of this whole process so that I could have addressed everything all at one time. But as I stated earlier, we are surrounded on three sides, Fairway Villas. Okay, you're talking about putting that commercial stuff up at the front, where my villas are right here, and I've already heard from my owners in the two sections of villas that face that section of where the commercial use is going, and all of them have said, we do not want a wall. We don't want to feel like we're blocked in, okay? I've addressed this with the engineers and at the last meeting at the high school, and we prefer a berm with some kind of landscape or something, but we do not want a wall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hill. Okay. Sorry about that, sir. We will move on to closing arguments. Thank you.
Again, Charlie Bailey. We appreciate it. I know this has been a kind of a long, painful process, but keeping in mind that this is infill development, which is kind of what we harped on when we were here before you last, which is the most desirable form of development. You're redeveloping an old, tired asset. You're putting it on the tax rolls, big time. I said asset.
For some reason, it's not what I heard.
And putting it back on the tax rolls, and on steroids though, because right now it's one tax parcel that doesn't collect a whole lot of money. You're about to have 500, 600 plus tax accounts that will be generating income for the city of Northport. And you've got that development though, more importantly, where you want it. Infrastructure's there. And it's hard being the last one in because you're the last piece of the puzzle. We've got development all around us and have tried to be very, very sensitive to our neighbors and ensure that regardless of what we were building where, it was going to be compatible with our adjoining landowners. And I appreciate the last speaker. We weren't trying to say, hey, yeah, we heard the commission say they wanted a wall. You know what, let's be slick and maybe do a wall, maybe not do a wall. We don't know that if there is commercial development at the perimeter of our mixed-use project, we recognize it must be compatible. And the buffer plan that we'd already provided a 30-foot wide buffer, which is pretty substantial, with an optional wall. And we're not sure that there will be commercial at the perimeter of our mixed use. More than likely, it's going to be up on Greenwood, and we could have the multifamily we talked about, the townhomes, might be up along the perimeter, or the assisted living facility might be up along the perimeter, in which case a wall wouldn't be required. So we really do believe, we've worked with your planning staff, truly trying to bring back conditions that we think really met the intent of the city commission. A lot of moving parts to this, but it came to you with a unanimous recommendation from your Planning and Zoning Advisory Board. It came to you with a recommendation of approval by your city staff with conditions. We accepted all of those conditions. We heard additional requests for revised and additional conditions on May 2nd, and we've added 3 additional conditions, tightened one of those conditions to the DMP, and have modified our text amendment to make sure that the multifamily is in a form that we think meets the desire of the city commission. It certainly meets the desire of our neighbors. So we would simply respectfully request your approval of the comp plan amendment on adoption to adopt it, the zoning text of the Unified Land Development Code text amendment on second reading be approved. With the revised language tightening the multifamily, we ask that the rezoning ordinance be approved on second reading, and we respectfully request your approval of the DMP with each of the conditions we've proffered tonight. We thank you very much for your time. And we look very much forward to getting forward before you as soon as y'all will have us to present in detail the agreement for the bridge. And do truly, we thank all the staff that we've worked with. I know that they bring a lot in front of you, but I can tell you, Nicole has kind of been like our Sherpa up Mount Everest, kind of getting us here, because this is a redevelopment of a golf course with all the hair that it has on it. And she has made this process, I can't say it has been painless, but she has helped guide us through it. And with Ms. Slayton and Jerry Traverso and Ben Newman and Chief Titus, we really appreciate their guidance in helping us get to this point. So we respectfully request your approval of each of the applications before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have much. We do recommend approval of these items. I do want to point out one little thing for the approval process. The ordinances that are attached for second reading do not have the exhibits. So I just want to make sure we include that. They haven't changed from first reading, and the ordinances with that are still posted in there. Are still part of the agenda item. So all the exhibits are within everything that's been noticed. They just weren't attached to the ordinance on second reading.
Oh, right.
They're separated out still, instead of all one big package.
Yeah.
But you don't have to put that as part of the motion.
I'm not sure, so I just wanted to
No.
bring it up and make it clear. The only change that needs to be made to any of the exhibits is Exhibit C to Ordinance 2019-09.
Oh, wait. 2019-09. Okay.
It needs to, let me find the page. On page 6 of that exhibit, that list of uses needs to match the uses that are within the ordinance.
Wait, page 6 of which exhibit? I
Exhibit
got
C to Ordinance
19.
2019-09.
Huh?
The letter H, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
I
So
what you're talking about.
I circled it in red.
Well, that, I was looking, and it was 2019-09. And the exhibit is what? C.
Letter H.
Letter H on page 6.
And that needs to be amended. I gotcha. Okay, and then,
Mr. Carson, you had something real quick.
yeah, okay, so the buffering, we have, well, first of all, the conditions that are spoken to in this July 8th memo from Mr. Bailey. This memo is submitted as part of the record, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in referring to this, we talk about, I assume that this would be attached to the petition first day, CCDMP 18071, correct? Okay, so all these conditions, in number 10, it has a buffer plan. Does that buffer plan include landscape options as well as the wall that it will be possibly one or the other? Is that how the buffer plan is working in that? I'm trying to decide whether that needs to be amended so that you have the option to either do the wall or do the landscape buffer.
It would be landscape or landscape with wall. So
Landscape
there's
or
landscape in
what?
both options. One option has a wall.
One more time.
Landscape or landscape with wall.
Yes.
And, all right, let me simplify it. Do I need to amend the number 10 that's been listed by Mr. Bailey in this memo?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so it allows for a landscape wall or a wall in the buffer plan as it is described.
It allows for a landscaped wall or a landscaped berm.
Which is
No
your
wall.
buffer.
No 8-foot wall, period.
In one of the
Because that's
options,
not what it
yes.
says. Oh, I'm so confused now.
One of the options allows for landscape only, one of the options allows for a wall with landscape.
Correct.
So when you see the 8-foot wall, that includes landscape with that 8-foot.
Yes.
It's the same thing we talked about last meeting.
Yes, I just want to make sure that there's an option in here and it's written, because these conditions are not a part of this, so when we approve it, it has to be a part of the, anyways, I'm ready for a motion.
Who wants to make a motion?
All right, I'll move to approve CCDMP 1807.
We can't do that
Yeah,
yet.
we gotta do them in a specific order.
Remember, we moved that
Number one
around.
is A.
We moved it around, remember?
Yeah.
The comprehensive plan amendment needs to be first.
Thank you.
No, I wasn't here, sorry, remember I walked in late.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Okay. So someone else want to?
So ordinance number 2019-07 is first.
Oh, right underneath. All right, move to approve ordinance number 1907.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Carson, seconded by Commissioner Luke. I have no speakers up, so let's take a vote.
This didn't need any amendments or anything, right? Just want to make sure, because I didn't write on that one.
That passes unanimously. Next motion?
Now can I go back to A?
Now you got to go to 2019-08.
Ms. Galehouse will walk us through this.
Ordinance 2019-08, the rezone.
The rezone, okay. All right, so move to approve ordinance number 2019-08.
A second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Carasone, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Commissioner Carasone, you have anything to that? Commissioner Luke? Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of rezoning property, especially with this intensity, but with the mixed use and the commercial and the residential, the only reason why, just for the record, I am going to go ahead and approve this is because of the previous rezones that have happened in the past that allowed for the residential portion of it. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
All right, let's take a vote.
Not getting anything. Oh, there it is.
Yep. And that passed unanimously. Next motion?
All right.
No.
Now we move on to, move to approve ordinance number 2019-09 with the amendment to Exhibit C, letter H.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Carasone, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Do I have any? Commissioner McDowell?
Ms. Galehouse, do we need to include these conditions in with this activity center because these conditions directly, indirectly affect this activity center?
See, I thought
No, the conditions need to
were
go
in
on to the
the
development
first
master
one.
plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
not to the activity center. Just wanted to make sure that we're not forgetting anything. Thank you.
Okay, let's take the vote.
That's what I was- Oh, there it is.
That passed unanimously. I believe there's one more.
Okay, now I can go back to CC? All right, well, we move to approve CCDMP 18071 with both staff conditions and those conditions proffered by the applicant as noted in the letter dated July 8th, 2019 by Mr. Bailey.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Carasone, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Commissioner McDowell?
Ms. Galehouse, does that letter include I just want to make sure that it includes all of the items that the petitioner has already agreed to, up through conditions 8, 9, 10, and 11, and also that medium density?
The motion includes staff conditions, which are those 1 through 8 that are already in there, and then the ones from the applicant. The medium density change was in the previous ordinance.
It's
Oh,
also
that's the
mentioned in
H.
this,
Gotcha.
too.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take the vote.
Always want to make sure that we're getting everything covered.
That passes unanimously. Thank you guys very much. Before we move on, I want to apologize to Commissioner Tower. I shook your hand earlier, but I forgot to announce that you were in the room, and I'm sorry about that because you are definitely a force to be reckoned with, my friend. So I'm just going to back away now slowly. So I apologize, sir. Okay, we're going to move on. Now, these other ones have to be in a specific order too, right?
Yes.
All right, so,
D,
city manager, I'm going to give it to you. However order we got to do this.
D, E, J, F, G, H.
One more time.
D, E, J, F.
D-E-J-F-G-H.
E.
GH, yes, that's what I had written down.
All right, city manager. You want to introduce those items?
They need to be read by title only.
Oh, well.
Read them all.
What happened to my thing?
Yep.
D is separate from the rest.
You are right, okay.
D is separate.
D is separate, yes.
So if we could, Mr. Mayor, if we could get if you want to do them as a group, if we could get weigh-in from the applicant and then read them by title
Yes.
only and then go from there.
Well, if that, 24 is a totally separate thing.
24 is totally separate. When we saw these the last time, we did not do them combined.
Correct.
So
No.
that would be a new decision for these ones.
Right.
D,
So we need to ask the applicant if he would like to combine these.
J.
If the board is inclined to combine the items when you get to item E,
Oh, but it's just that one? I mean, what do you mean combine them? Oh, okay, because D,
First by
D is
itself.
separate, I got you. Would you like to combine E, J, F, G, and H, sir? What?
I don't.
All right.
Because
Well, that's
they're
fine, but I'm
each-
asking the applicant right now. Would you like to do it?
We are completely fine with the testimony being on all the items.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so, board, Commissioner McDowell.
we did it all separate. Each one of these pattern plans are specifically related to that particular one. And to commingle everything on because they're not related. The only thing that is related is the index map.
I'm good with combining them after we do D.
Commissioner Carusone?
I'm fine with combining them after D.
And that is a consensus. So we will combine them after D. We're going to hit D first. D is not quasi, right? All right, so let me see where we're at here. City Clerk, will you please read ordinance by title only?
An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the Unified Land Development Code, Chapter 53, Article 18, V Village, Sections 53-213 and 53-214, to provide regulations for adoption, contents, and maintenance for Village Index Map, Village District Pattern Book, and Village District Pattern Plan, and incorporating by reference the West Village Index Map, the West Village's Village District Pattern Book, and all previously adopted West Village's Village District Pattern Plans, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. City Manager, will you introduce item, please?
I'm going to actually just introduce Ms. Galehouse in an effort to get this done quickly.
Fantastic.
For the record, Nicole Galehouse, Planning Manager. This is second reading of the ordinance that will adopt the index map, West Village's Pattern Book, and West Village's Pattern Plans into the Unified Land Development Code. Between first and second reading, we did make the change that was recommended by our city attorney, and that is found on line 201 of the ordinance for second reading. And I am here if you have questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Where are we at? Okay, we don't have any public comments, so, all right. Have any questions?
And it fell off for some reason.
Commissioner McDowell.
Okay, so I printed out, I think there's a problem because I printed out the second reading of this ordinance, and line 203 was not changed in mine. That, it's supposed to, I even asked the city clerk to give me the draft minutes to show the motion, and it says that the ordinance would be approved for second reading, adding the city attorney's recommended changes to 53-214C2. And I don't see that in my second reading paper that I printed.
So if you look at the one that's in first reading, on line 201, it says 10 in parentheses and says final VDPP, and then it has letter F underneath it, and everything's underlined. In the one that's ordinance 2019-24 for second reading, if you look at line 201, it says in parentheses 2, except as provided herein, and then there's a few sentences that are not underlined, and then it continues with the underlined language that we're adding, which is the change that was being made. I'm looking at it in iLegislate, I'm not sure.
Unfortunately, it's not loading on mine to bring up the actual agenda item. It's like being obnoxious. City Attorney?
To me earlier.
Can you help me out here because I printed the second reading and it's the same as the first. But is it the same that's in the?
There's a subsection in the ordinance for second reading that's not, it doesn't appear in the ordinance for first reading.
And the one from first reading, the subsection will be.
If you look in section 53-214C, immediately after that.
By mine, okay. As long as that's what is on there, that was my only question. I just wanted to make sure that the change was made, but mine, I don't know what happened. So, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the change was made because
Okay.
my second reading didn't show it, but
All right, so I have no other question? Yep.
Move to approve ordinance number 2019-24.
Second.
First on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrasone. Anything of that, Commissioner Luke?
No.
Carrasone?
Nope.
Let's take a vote. And that passes 4-0. All right, we're going to move on. The next few are quasi judicial. I believe they're all quasi, right?
Make a phone call. Like,
Let's see. They're not.
It's not quasi.
Huh?
Jay is not.
Oh, Jay's not?
closure, so.
Yeah, well, neither's I, right? Oh. All right, so we're just going to handle the quasis right now as one, right? And we're going to go to the other two separate. Was that what we did?
Which,
I mean, you could do it either way. If
All right,
you
I'm just
decide
making
to
sure
do
that it'll work.
everything quasi together,
Because that was what I
do
need.
Jay first.
I thought we were doing D first.
I did too, because I thought that was the order.
There's no harm in
Or,
including J.
yeah, we already did it.
Okay.
Sorry,
All right.
E. E
There's no
second.
harm in including J in your quasi judicial hearing.
J or I?
I,
Oh, sorry. All right. All right, so let's do that, because that was my intention, was to do that. I just wanted to make sure we could. All right, so we're going to do that. So if you, let's see, first thing I need you to do is, I guess,
Can I just state on the record, I have no other additional,
yeah, well, I think I have to,
You have to introduce the
yeah, I have
items
to introduce
first.
the items first. That's why I said.
I'll do it when I get back.
Take a deep breath.
Where am I? Where is everything? Oh, here we are. All right. City Clerk, can you please read the ordinances by title only?
An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the West Village's index map to relocate the town center and village center boundaries, adjust village boundaries, add approximate public use acreages, and add potential fire police station location alternatives, providing for findings, providing for adoption, providing for filing of approved documents, providing severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. And that was 2019-20, sorry. So then- Ordinance number 2019-14, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida relating to CPAL 19-028, amending the comprehensive plan, future land use map 2-7, and existing land use map 2-8, to change the designation of an approximate 12-acre area located south of US 41 and east of the State College of Florida campus in the West Villages from public to village, providing for findings, providing for adoption, providing for transmittal of documents, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 2019-25. An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, adopting the Village E Village District Pattern Plan, West Villages, for an approximate 480-acre area located to the west of River Road, to the south of US 41, to the north of the future Playmore Road, and to the east of the State College of Florida campus and West Villages Parkway, amending the Unified Land Development Code, Chapter 53, Article 18, V Village, Section 53-214, to incorporate the pattern plan by reference, providing for findings, providing for adoption, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Yes, ma'am. What is wrong?
City Attorney, we made a change in that title block to go from 480 acres to reflect the correct acreage of 325. That was,
360, because we changed it and re-advertised the The agenda item.
Is there a question?
I just read it at 480 because it wasn't changed on this item.
backup materials for this, it is showing 480 as the second readings ordinance.
I have 306.42.
It's in the same area? If it's been properly advertised, I don't see an issue. The public's been put on notice regarding, the subject property. It may have been put on if it's been properly noticed in the paper, then they've been put on accurate notice. If the agenda includes more property than what's actually being considered, I don't see that as being prejudicial in any way.
But does she have to read the correct title block is what I'm asking city attorney? Instead of the 480 that she stated, it should be stated 325.
I think if you want to make that correction, I don't think you need to reread it, just to state that the.
I just want to keep it pure, that's all I'm trying to do.
I think just to state the correct acreage would
Okay,
be fine.
for ordinance number 2019-25, the correct acreage is 306 acres. All right. Ordinance number 2019-19, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, adopting the Village F Village District Pattern Plan, West Villages, for an approximate 828-acre area located to the west of the future West Villages Parkway, to the south of Playmore Road and the Island Walk subdivision, to the north of the future Manasota Beach Road, and to the east of the Sarasota National Development, amending the Unified Land Development Code, Chapter 53, Article 18, V Village, Section 23-214, to incorporate the pattern plan by reference, providing for findings, providing for adoption, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 2019-26, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, adopting the Village G Village District Pattern Plan, West Villages, for an approximate 742-acre area located to the west of River Road, to the south of Playmore Road, to the north of the future Manasota Beach Road, and to the east of West Villages Parkway, amending the Unified Land Development Code, Chapter 53, Article 18, B Village, Section 53-214, to incorporate the pattern plan by reference, providing for findings, providing for adoption, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Will you, see, I think the next thing we have to do is ex parte. Do we ex parte or do we?
No, I got to swear everybody in.
Swear in or ex parte next? Because it's not on my list here. It doesn't show the swearing in part. Swearing in? Go ahead, City Clerk, please swear in the applicants.
Can everyone wishing to provide testimony please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, so help you God?
Yes.
Wonderful. Ex parte, Commissioner Luke.
Nothing from the last time.
Mr. McDowell.
Mine's exactly the same as the last time.
Mine's the same as the last time. Okay, move on to presentations. Mr. Black.
For the record, my name is Marty Black, and I have been sworn. I represent, as chairman of the West Villages Improvement District, and then each of the variety of property owners that are before you in the various petitions. Appreciate the commission taking the time to consolidate the comments. Really, from our last meeting, there was one outstanding issue. We talked about annexing the 44-acre piece that was at River Road and US 41. It shows corrected now in the agenda materials as outside the city limits. That area is in an area under your comprehensive plan that is designated as a future annexation area. That's that light purple area, and you'll see some other properties as well along US 41. Those properties, effectively from the, I'll say from just across the river back to West Villages, are outside the county's urban service area, as is the State College of Florida campus. Although that area is not in your future annexation area, it is in Sarasota County. And you'll see that the ownership and the entirety of West Villages surrounds it. The campus itself is currently served by county water, but it has its own packaged treatment plant for wastewater. And I believe, as I testified in some other hearings, the college did contact West Villages with regard to connecting to sanitary sewer. Unfortunately, because it's outside the city limits and we receive our service from the city of Northport, they can't access. So part of what I'm here to tell you is we have filed the annexation petition for the 44 acres with the city. As we talked about, I know the commission talked about doing a condition and giving us 5 years. There is one difficulty with that. We can't complete the annexation without the consent of Sarasota County. That takes up to a year. The alternative is for the city of Northport and Sarasota County to enter into an interlocal service area or a joint planning agreement. When I was city manager in Venice, we did one. City of Northport actually had one, and apparently at some point in time decided to withdraw. So I would suggest to you that it may be appropriate to reconsider entering into that agreement. It short circuits having each individual property owner go through a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment with the county, to turn around and have to go through a large-scale plan amendment with the city, and then do a rezoning and then a master plan of development for each of these parcels with the city in order to do development. So what I'm suggesting to you is a consideration that the city undertake that, and I understand you'll be meeting jointly with the county commission here shortly. Perhaps that's an item could be added to the agenda, but the interim, we've placed our intent to annex that property into the city, and we'll wait to see if the city is able to move forward with the county on a joint planning agreement that would allow not only this property, but several other small properties along 41 that really, until this is resolved, are precluded from moving forward because the cost and uncertainty of that process is untenable for most small properties. And with that, I'm available for any questions on each of the petitions.
Thank you.
Can I ask one on what?
Yeah, I got to get to staff. City manager?
Ms. Galehouse will.
Good evening. For the record, Nicole Galehouse, and I have been sworn. So I'm going to go over some of the kind of details first. So for the Village E pattern plan, we did make the corrections to the acreage. It is 306.42. I provided a survey that goes with that to show that is the correct acreage, and that has been changed throughout all of the documents, except apparently the agenda item title. So we've gotten all of that corrected. On ordinance number 2019-14, this was the comprehensive plan amendment to change the fees from public land use to village land use. This has been sent to the state. We did not receive any significant comments from any of the state reviewing agencies, and so it is here for second reading today. For the index map, I just want to kind of revisit this just a little bit for second reading, and just kind of remind and point out a few key things for the index map amendment. Again, just because we do have a lot of concern about the reduction in town center acreage here. I want to point out the applicant is for the index map is different than the other petitions. It is the West Villages Improvement District, not the developer. So for that particular one, the promises of annexation and things can't be made from that particular applicant. The 44-acre piece, it's always been contemplated for non-residential use. That's why it's in our future annexation overlay. So regardless of who the property owner is, it's always going to be non-residential. There's that. If the 200 acres is removed with this petition, we have serious concern that we will lose it forever and we will never get that acreage back. I understand that there's concern over the potential of developing in that bean-shaped piece because the applicants express that you can't put retail there, but we don't want retail. I've talked to economic development, and that's not what we're looking for. We want targeted out-market industries, and our economic development team is very eager to work with the West Villages to see those types of targeted industries out there. I understand that our acreage method of calculating this is not necessarily the best way to do it. It doesn't calculate in those FARs. It doesn't calculate in the quality of development. But right now, it's what we have. And I would urge you to leave that acreage there. Let us figure something else out and come back and then look at it. Because if you take it off now, we're not going to get it back. If we're concerned about the impact to the 3 villages that are part of the VDPPs before you today, put it somewhere else. Just leave it there as a holding cell until we really do work out these numbers and figure out exactly what the impact to the city is. One of the questions that was asked about at the last hearing was what the West Villages Improvement District was supposed to provide in terms of non-residential in the beginning. So there's 2 ways that we can look at this. One is it was a minimum of 30% of 1,860 acres, which comes out to 558 acres. Now it's being proposed at a minimum of 30% of 1,085 acres, which is 323 acres. But the difference is the potential for residential. When it was 1,860 acres, the residential was capped to 558, the same as what the minimum for the non-residential was. Now the residential can reach 627 acres, so more than what was originally the maximum for residential within town center on a little over half of the acreage. The other way to look at it is the number that I've always heard since I started working here was 3 million square feet of non-residential. It, I believe, was based on the traffic studies and the capacity of what it had out there. The total that's being approved, that's been approved so far and would be approved with these VDPPs tonight, comes to 1,570,000 square feet. And the only thing left on the index map for non-residential is 2 small village centers. You're never going to hit that original target of 3 million square feet. The areas of town center that have been relocated with this into Village D are going to be developed based on their already approved development plans. The Village D pattern plan is not changing, and you're going to get that development regardless of if they actually move the town center there. They're giving us something we already have. You know, I just wanted to remind the commission that when we discussed the development on July 9th, that the commission expressed serious concern over the constant shrinking of the non-residential areas. And when we finished that discussion, this board asked me what it could do to help, how you can make sure we don't lose it. And you know, I said, be consistent, maintain the levels, don't let them shrink any further. And so I really think that's important with this petition today for the index map. Leave it on there. Let us figure out a better way to calculate those numbers and come back to it later on. You know, I just really think if we do not, if we don't address this now, we'll lose the opportunity to do so and find ourselves in a very similar situation, which is why we annexed that property in the first place, because general development left us with so little non-residential land, and it is very critical to the survival of this city that we have non-residential property. I did want to touch base on one other item in terms of the economic and fiscal impact models that are associated with the VDPPs. After the first reading, the applicant did work with staff to provide some additional inputs for that model. And the results do yield positive results in all villages except for Village G. Village G, it's positive over 30 years. Sorry, let me correct that. It is positive over 30 years, but it is negative until year 8. In the first 5 years, it's negative 932,000. Over 30 years, it's 16,858,000. For Village E, it is positive over 30 years, 11,788,000, and Village F is positive over 30 years, 20,391,000. And I am available for questions.
Thank you. Rebuttal, applicant?
Let me start with, you know, my background as a city manager and having worked in the public and private sectors for a number of years. I understand the commission's concern about the taxable value, the jobs creation in that component. Last time we were here, the economic model that the city requires us to use said villages were negative. Now the city staff have gone through and looked at up-to-date information, which is what we had suggested originally, and now 2 out of the 3 villages have a positive impact from day 1. You last heard testimony that it was going to take 10 years for those to be positive. Village G gets positive quicker and to a greater extent than the original testimony. I would suggest to you that the staff's comment that you'll never get the 3 million square feet because we're at 1.5 million. The reason we don't have more commercial square footage is for us to do more commercial square footage in the town center requires us to make improvements to the widening of US 41. And if we were to seek those approvals from you today, we would need to go out and widen US 41 in front of West Villages to 6 lanes. There isn't demand to do that today. We can't do that. We have land area available. The models on the original approvals, and the City Commission has already allowed us to change some of these pieces because we went through the testimony on the market conditions. We still have the ability to do more commercial space, more retail and more office. We're open, the doors are open, we're ready to come in. We still have more than half of the acreage left after doing these villages, particularly along areas along River Road and other portions. And you have other properties in West Villages. You have the Bankers Trust property adjoining West Villages that's there, that's over 100 acres that was originally an office park. The opportunities will be there. We've asked for and sought approvals in these village development pattern plans to date in the last 5 years, and brought with them each a mix of residential, retail, office, non-residential uses based on an analysis of transportation impacts and what the market conditions, the market analysts that are advising us on when to bring things to market and bring those out. So I would ask you to reconfirm your approvals from the first reading and approve these items with the corrections as noted by staff from the first reading. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, does staff have anything to speak to that?
I just want to clarify one point with regards to the fiscal impact models. They were not negative over 30 years for the last one. They were negative within the first 10 years. So I just wanted to clarify that point, and just really, drive home. I know that there's different things out there. I know there's still the potential for it to occur outside of a town center, outside of a village center, but there's no guarantee. And we're just very concerned about not having some level of assurance that there will be additional non-residential uses.
Thank you very much. We have no public comment, so we'll move on to questioning. Commissioner McDowell.
So I'm going to start with the village index map. That area that, thank you for correcting the map too, by the way. The town center where that area is now Activity Center 1, that's going to eventually be annexed in. I don't see that being a town center designation on this new map. Is that correct?
The area that would be annexed in, the 44-acre piece?
Yeah, that purplish area that's up on this map, that south of 41?
That is correct. It would not be a town center. The comprehensive plan requires that it would be annexed in as part of Activity Center 1.
Fantastic. So because the previous index map had included that as town center, based on the proposed index map that's before us today, what is the amount of acreage for commercial?
The town center acreage in the proposed index map before you today is 1,085 acres.
1,085.
Correct.
That's back how it was in 2016. That answered that question.
If I could, that we worked with staff to bring that number back up from what was originally requested. We actually requested closer to 900 and brought it back up to the 1,085.
Again, bringing it back to the 1,085 was adjusting a few alignments. It included the addition of the hospital property, which is not going to bring any taxes with it.
Going to with that.
And then it's land in Village D, which is already approved for the type of development that it's going to have. That development's going to happen there, whether you call it town center or whether you call it Village D.
On this village, I'm sorry, on this index map, where that little corner is that says HC, and forgive me, it's hard to determine, is that HC area, is that part of the town center?
It is proposed to be part of the town center.
Okay,
Yes.
so nothing can be done on that property because that's where the hospital is going as of now. We can change the index map at some point,
Correct.
but as of right now, that's not buildable.
It's owned by the hospital, yes.
So it's not going to be able to be used for commercial.
Correct.
Okay, so then moving down to where the school is, where the little S is underneath the state.
Actually, if I could correct that,
Can,
the her answer to your question may not be accurate.
The property owner is the hospital board. The Sarasota is Sarasota Memorial Hospital. So as of now, for
now, what's
our
before us?
best knowledge is that it would be owned by the hospital and operated by the hospital.
And if
There's, I guess, potential that a doctor's office could come in there and, there other medical offices could come in, but as long as it's owned by the hospital board, you will not see property taxes on that.
Correct. And the school, the same thing. Where the school parcel is, that is the exact same thing. So this 1,085 acres of town center is shrinking as we talk. We just lost the hospital space. We just lost the ability for the school, and this is before us today.
Correct. It also includes the wastewater treatment
And I
plant
was
site
just getting to that.
and the diocese property, both of which you will not collect property taxes
So
on.
based on the hospital, the school, the wastewater treatment plant, there's 2 parcels that are owned by the county. There's there's one more, there's another one that's, the Sarasota County Fire, but I don't think that's part of this. It's hard to tell on the map.
No, it's not.
So how many acres, as of right now, that are already slated to be a hospital, a school, a water treatment plant, and already owned by Sarasota County, because there's a piece close to River Road in 41. How many acres would you say that is?
The 4 that we just discussed total 169 acres.
So our 1,085 commercial town center available acreage just shrunk by another 169 as of right now.
Yes.
We all understand that at some point that can change. But as of right now, that cannot be, it's not taxable property. We're not collecting any taxes on that. It cannot be built on as far as commercial as of right now.
Correct.
So I too am extremely concerned, and I think I made that very clear at the last meeting, at the lack of commercial buildable space in these town centers. And yes, we need to find another 300, 400, pick, what is staff and our economic development team recommending for additional town center space? How many acres?
I think at this point, we just don't want to see it reduced to where it is. You know, I know it appears as if it's still the same acreage as it was before, minus 20 acres, but it's really still short that bean piece, which is about 200 acres. So
Okay.
that's really, we don't want to see that piece or that amount of acreage disappear. Again, I'm flexible if that location is really not ideal, I'm open to other locations.
Yeah, and while you're saying the 200, after subtracting this 169, we're really back up to like 350.
Yes.
All right, Mayor, that's all the questions I have on this index map. I don't know if you want me to proceed or if anybody else has questions on the
You
index
got about
map.
another 10 minutes worth of your first round. Get after it.
Going to Village E, very similar concerns. The comp plan states 30%. By increasing it to the 60, just because the other Village D is at 60 doesn't mean all of them have to be at 60. Staff is recommending the 30%, correct?
Correct.
So you mentioned the fiscal analysis, and I'm sorry, I couldn't write as fast as you were talking about that. Could you please tell me what the projected fiscal analysis is for the first 10 years on Village E?
For Village E, the first 5 years are positive $233,573. Years 6 through 10 are positive $788,612.
Okay. And there seemed to have been in the last meeting a little bit of controversy as to the purpose and role of the fiscal analysis. Could you explain how the fiscal analysis works and impacts on the city?
The fiscal analysis takes into account the operating revenues, everything that the development would generate, and it puts them against the operating expenditures, what the city is spending, and that's based off of our current year budget. The line item that I was going over where I get the numbers from is the net operating surplus or deficit. So that's what the cost to the city is, or the benefit to the city.
So this is just strictly a city tool. Has nothing to do about West Village's improvement district, building roads or infrastructure or anything like this. This is just the impact to the city.
Correct.
Based on this development over 5, 10, 30 years.
Correct.
Thank you. Got that taken care of. I'm glad to see it's positive. Thank you for rerunning those numbers. Village, I have a couple questions about some of the actual ordinances, Mayor. Bear with me while I kind of try to keep everything a little bit organized.
While you're thinking, the index maps did get swapped out on all of the BDPPs
Yeah, I
as
saw
well.
that, thank you. Yeah, I looked at
For
that,
the
I saw
record.
that.
Forgot to mention that.
Village E. I'm glad you corrected that 325, thank you for that. So on page 8 of Village E, ordinance number 2019-25, this mixed-use acreage of 111 and 195, those are accurate? Because I know at the last meeting, they said that they should have equaled 325, and that those two numbers for the acreage would be adjusted. I just want to make sure that those are accurate again.
No, I think it was 315. Right? Am I doing that wrong?
It adds up to 306, but in the last meeting, everybody agreed it was, the correct acreage was 325.
It's 306, sorry, yes.
Okay,
It's too late for me to be doing math.
I
in my head.
understand.
It's 306, and the survey, I believe, was included as backup to the Village E petition that shows it being 306.42 acres.
Mayor, I think I'll yield the floor, but I may have to come back.
Okay. Commissioner Luke.
I think looking at this thing, I can't even figure out what one of my questions was, so I'm just going to ask one. And this is from Mr. Black. How did you come to find out that that annexation issue, if you don't mind sharing how you found out?
Actually, city staff and I have had different discussions on different properties similarly situated. Some smaller parcels, I don't know if they're half acre or 2 acres, I don't even remember, sometime in the last year. I was not aware that this property was subject to that until we started looking into it as a result of the last meeting. And then city staff confirmed that for us. We've had discussions with county staff, and I made sure the city manager was aware today that we are aware that that has to happen. My recommendation is that, the city get the consent of the county, because it helps not just the 44 acres. I mean, West Village is a large enough entity to go spend the $5,000 in a year with the county. The problem is, I will tell you, there is no guarantee that you'll get the required 5-0 vote on a county comprehensive plan amendment. Sometimes they get along with the city and the city gets along with them. Sometimes they don't, which is why I'm suggesting that you do the route of a joint planning or a local agreement, because putting that risk on property owners doesn't guarantee this property will be developed as commercial or any of these other small parcels. That's a heavy burden for these property owners to carry. If you truly want economic development and you have the ability to serve, and we're getting ready to finish a wastewater plant here in West Villages where there's water and wastewater available right in 41, and those property owners are facing a 1 to 2 year process before they can start development. 1 year with the county and another year with the city before they can even come to you with development plans. That's a long time, particularly for some of the small property owners to wait.
All right, so next question, because with what he said, I remembered the second one, the college wanting to utilize our utilities. We have other people outside of our jurisdiction that have utilities and they just pay a higher rate. So why could not the college do the same?
The language in our code requires that if you are contiguous, in order to get utilities, you have to annex. So the other properties that have it and are paying the higher rate are not contiguous.
Okay, I have other questions that I will be asking because of that, it stirs some other properties into my mind that we annexed. So I'll have, because that will lead to something else.
If you
Could
don't
we-
mind, it is a city ordinance, the city does set the policy. You can modify that for different conditions.
Thank you. I understand from the last meeting about all the other neighborhood commercial, for lack of another word, that there is more room, or there is room and design for commercial throughout the West Village, not just in the town center. So could we not go after targeted industries in those areas also?
I might have to rely on our economic development folks who are here to help me answer those kinds of questions today. I don't know that you could put those on small.
Has she been sworn?
Good, almost midnight, Commissioners.
Have you been
Thomas,
sworn?
Economic Development, and I am
Have you been
Yes,
sworn?
I have been
Okay.
sworn. Both times, the first time accidentally. Okay, a little levity for the evening, right? So your question, if I understand it, was, are there not opportunities within the smaller neighborhood commercial areas that we could look for targeted industry? Being unfamiliar at this point with size, scope, amount of space in those areas, I couldn't speak specifically, but I could not ever rule out the possibility that we are thinking smaller because we are scaled to that requirement here in Northport. We're not set up for anything large, or in these areas, certainly not that way. And this day and age, our software developers do come in packages of 8 to 10. So that's a small scale kind of enterprise. Marty, you're gonna have to look to you to see if those neighborhood development areas could house 8 to 10 in those sections.
Anywhere from 10 to 30 acres in size.
Okay, so absolutely, if they're built to scale for that kind of thing, those certainly are within the scheme of operation.
Thank you. That's all the questions I'll have right now.
Okay, Commissioner Carson.
Going back to the index map, is it possible to approve with the condition upon the 44-acre annexation? Or is that going to take like forever because of the JPA issue?
I did speak with Amber, and I'll let her speak to this as well, but we can't put a condition on the ordinance.
Yes, putting a condition on it creates all kinds of problems, including enforcement. If the concern is that you only want the approval of the index map to take effect once the 44 acres has been annexed, you can modify the effective date of the ordinance. But it's not really workable to approve the index map on a condition of something that may or may not happen, down the road.
But how do you know the effective date if you don't know about how long it'll take to annex the 44 acres either? Yeah. All right, next question is, the 169 acres you spoke about earlier about the school, the hospital, about all these non-taxable areas, they were never actually a part of the original plan. They were always a part of the government use, AKA non-taxable parcels, correct?
Yes, the original, let me see if I can find it.
So my point is essentially we didn't lose 169 acres because we never planned for them to be taxable.
I believe that they weren't always located where they are. Some of them have been added. So the school site has been shifted. They were not originally always part of the town center. They were always part of the West Villages, but not always part of the town center.
But they're the same size acreage, right? I guess this is to the applicant.
Actually, to your point, the technical high school was in the town center originally. It was the 12-acre site. The school board said that's too small, and they put the technical center out by the interstate. And so they came to us and said, we want the 60 acres on West Villages Parkway. They've now come to us and said, We don't want 60 acres on West Villages Parkway. We want to be south of the new Minnesota Beach Road. We've actually met with the county school board staff. The school board has ordered appraisals on new property, and they're prepared to move forward with a swap so that this 60 acres will be part commercial, part of the town center area. We've actually reached agreement with the fire chief that the only exception would be that the city wants 5 acres out of that for future fire station.
The 60 acres that they have currently, will you be reducing that acreage by the swap?
The 60 acres, the new acreage, I believe, is somewhere between 100 and 121 because it would house a high school and an elementary school.
Okay, so you're going to go from 60 to 120 acres?
Yep, south of Minnesota. But there are other requirements for school board and public use sites. But
So
it's
it-
outside the town center area. It actually takes up residential property.
So in looking at the original plan for the town center, the Sarasota Memorial Hospital piece was not included in that acreage. The diocese property was not included in that acreage. The only pieces that were a potential utility site and a potential school.
Well, diocese, that whole entire portion wasn't even part of the original district, so I get that.
Correct.
But the Sarasota Memorial Hospital portion was always a part of it.
It was, and it was excluded from the town center.
Right, but it was still X amount of acres that was taken off the tax roll.
Right, and I understand that that's always been part of it.
Yeah.
My concern is with the town center and the area that's supposed to house the most of our non-residential is now being taken up with these uses that are non-taxable. Before they were outside that area.
But this town center is also internal, correct?
What do you mean by internal?
In other words, it's on the internal area of the district/village. It's a town center that's really only going to serve its residents, essentially. I know what the intent is, but things have been shifting so that town centers where there's a commercial development aspect to it is shifting to outside where it's easier
Well, again,
access.
I think if you look at it as we only want retail, it's probably gonna serve primarily the residents that are out there. You're gonna have some, nicer businesses and nicer restaurants that are probably gonna draw residents from the rest of the city. But again, this is the point where I spoke about economic development. We don't necessarily want the non-residential uses to be strictly retail. You want them to be the targeted out-market industries where, like she said, the tech companies, where they're selling something somewhere else and it's making the city money.
I get that, but I don't know if a town center is exactly where I'd want a tech company located when the town center was originally, the idea was to service not only the people that lived within the village district, but to have accessibility from the public, and we've learned over the last 14 years that that doesn't necessarily work.
Right. The original town center was one big area. It was, basically from River Road down to West Villages Parkway, that whole chunk. It's been broken up now. So it probably would serve those other industries better in that sense, because that's not what the target is. The target is not that destination in that sense.
Okay. I'm done for now.
Okay. Commissioner Emmerich?
Yeah, I just got one question for clarification. The 44 acres that we're talking about, where is that located at?
That is located, if you look at the image on the screen.
Yeah, that was all blurry and I couldn't see the roads and everything,
Pretty
so.
blurry.
Is it the old gas station, defunct gas station area?
No.
It's actually
No,
across
it's
the
across the
street.
street from that.
Right,
Yes.
and north of River Road, correct?
East
South
of River
of-
Road, south of US 41.
It's the old landscape
It's
property.
the old
Okay,
rock.
that's what I meant, because that's what I thought it was, but I think it was put out there that it was the old defunct gas station, and I know that that's a separate owner.
No, at the last meeting, Commissioner Carasone asked about that property and what was going on with it, so I think it
Yeah, I
created a little
usually
bit of.
shut her out when she's asking questions, so that's probably why I didn't hear it, but thank you, that's all I wanted for clarification, thank you, sir.
All right.
What did you say?
Yep.
Yeah.
Last
Works
round,
both ways.
last round of questioning, about 8 minutes. Commissioner McDowell.
Village F, because I, again, didn't quite be able to write as fast as you spoke on the fiscal analysis. Could you please tell me what the revenue, whether it's a positive or negative for 1 through 5, years 1 through 5?
Years 1 through 5 are positive 417,050.
And then obviously 6 through 10 is
6 through 10 is 1,338,788.
same question for G.
For Village G, years 1 through 5 are negative 932,315. And positive, years 6 through 10, 299, 149. If you drill into the detail, it becomes positive in year 8.
Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Commissioner Luke.
I only have two. To continue on, I was going to ask staff then, or maybe Marty too, whoever, what year did the city drop that 41 corridor agreement with the county?
The JPA, you mean?
Yeah, it was
Not 41
early
corridor.
mid-2000, before 2010.
We
After 2000.
drafted it before 2010.
It was not in place for a very long time, from my understanding.
Somewhere before 2010, it was done away with.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, because I had been told that it was still continuing, and we were basically led to believe that in the last meeting too. So, all right, my next question.
No, the applicant at the northeast corner of River Road in 41 has their own joint planning agreement that they are operating under, but the city does not have one as a whole.
Okay, and as I said,
Love
I
to
was
know
led to
when that
believe that they
drops,
could.
because I'm telling you,
that they
we were
could.
diligently on that.
All right, so the 120 acres going toward the college or the school board, is that in the county or the city if it's below Minnesota Beach?
I believe it would be in the city. Marty can confirm that. I think it's for city schools.
It would be for the city schools area. So basically, you know where the exit onto River Road, or River Road East that goes in toward the north end of the state park, cuts across into West Villages where the entrance is the scale house and the yard and the old rock pile. It's property on the southwest corner that they're looking at.
So it's in
It's in the city limits.
City limits.
Just barely, but it's in the city limits.
Thank you. That's all.
Commissioner Carrasone.
Do we have to approve that?
No.
Not under
So you can
not under
swap-
state law.
So you can swap those pieces of property from 60 to 120 without our approval?
Correct.
School board gets to kind of do what they want.
Well, I mean, I would think that it's up to you guys to allow it or not, because I mean, it's 60 acres versus 120 acres being taken off the tax roll.
If we create demand for the school, we have to provide resources for them to build the schools.
It would be, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the developer who's swapping that property, not the district. It's sometimes confusing when you've got both of them on these.
That's why I said at the beginning, I'm representing the chairman as the district and then as agent for the different property owners. That property is technically in what's called Minnesota Beach Ranch Lands, LLLP.
Oh, I know it well.
So it's in there. I would say, the property has been selected because the school board needs to build a high school. Because what we don't want to have is to keep shipping the kids that are living in Northport to Venice.
Yeah, but I don't understand how they think that people are going to actually drive there, because you're going to serve Englewood. You're not going to serve Northport, other than those who live in West Village District.
And we've already filled up Taylor Ranch Elementary. It's at capacity.
All right, well, I mean, the whole idea of having a piece of property double off the tax rolls, that's a little concerning to me.
And I
It
do
really
understand
is.
that, and we're trying to meet the public facility needs.
Well, they got money, let them buy it. Sorry.
Well, and I think part of what we looked at actually was to take the 60 acres and get it back into the town center where we're required to meet the mix and put that commercial, non-residential property on the tax rolls. And by moving to a piece where it would be residential development,
Which is
you get the
great,
higher
but
valuation.
in the meantime, you're losing 120 acres, you know what I mean? Like, you're losing an additional 60 acres, so,
Well, how about they just give us another piece of their property to put on our tax roll?
which,
That's-
yeah, that the school board owns, because they own plenty,
About the
yeah?
school board hand over a different piece, that's,
That's part of the reason we'd like to bring our 44 acres in to help compensate for that.
Well, and as far as that's concerned, is there a way that we can dedicate this Village H, it would be the 44 acres in the pattern book? This way it's kind of in there, but it's not, you know what I mean?
I don't think we'd be able to do that again because it's not part of the West Villages in terms of where the development's gonna happen. It would be part of Activity Center 1 per the comprehensive plan.
No, but it could be referred to as future development. I'm already, it's right
Well,
here.
What I would actually suggest is, I think you could put it in town center. The city can amend its comprehensive plan to require all that property along 41 to be town center instead of activity center, and just hold your feet to it. I mean, if you want it to be activity center, you could leave it at that, or if you want it to be town center, you could do that. I mean, you have the ability to amend your comprehensive plan to set that standard for how you want that property to develop. You could create a separate area that says there's no residential allowed if it's annexed into the city, just as you've identified it as future annexation area. I mean,
Well,
you've got a policy.
yeah, we identified it also as an activity center, so.
But you could add a policy that says these annexation areas along US 41, it's a stated city policy, that when they're annexed, they're limited to non-residential properties.
I think that's something we'd want to evaluate very carefully. That corner is potentially a major gateway for the city, and as such is subject to our activity center design guidelines.
Yes.
And if we removed it from Activity Center 1, we no longer have any control over that because we don't participate in the West Villages Review Committee.
Yeah, it was just an idea. I'm just trying to find a way that we add it into something so that it's almost like that placeholder that you're looking for, you know, that says that it's going to,
Right,
it's
right now,
planned
it's
for.
not in the city, so we can't really say anything about what happens there.
No, but I mean, we've done it in our comp plan before that, you know, these are parcels that we plan on annexing and.
It's on there as a future annexation overlay.
Mm-hmm. I'm done.
Move on to closing argument. Applicant.
Again, we ask for your approval of each of the outstanding items, starting with the comprehensive plan amendment for the conversion of the 12 acres to the private designation and private ownership piece. With regard to the index map, we understand your concerns for the non-residential property. That's part of the reason when you talked about, you know, giving us 5 years to file an annexation application. We did it in 2 weeks. We're committed to be a partner and a good partner with the city to bring that development and create that value for you requires a partnership. We believe we continue to demonstrate that. And we're willing to work with the city on, you know, getting the county to agree to an interlocal that allows not just that piece, but other properties along that same corridor to come in and create taxable value for the city. I would also suggest to you that if you look at each of the villages, E, F, and G, they're a net positive to the city. I sat through your hearings on the road and drainage fee. I know you need that revenue. But there's also a tenet in state law for Florida. We see it on impact fees and we see it in other development agreements. You know, property owners are supposed to pay their fair share. All of the analysis says West Villages is going to pay more than its fair share to help the city achieve that financial sustainability that you want. We're only halfway through the development potential now, and we've got over 1.5 million square feet of space, and the only thing so far that's come out of the ground is a public shopping center. So there's 1,400,000 square feet that can be done, and we welcome the opportunity to work with the city's economic development staff to identify users to come in and develop that space. I mean, that's, as I said before in my testimony, if we could sell every acre as commercial, we'd make a lot more money than selling it as houses. Thank you.
I don't have much, I'll keep it short and sweet. You know, as far as the pattern plans, you know, we do support those moving forward. The comprehensive plan amendment to change from public to village, we support that as well. We just, again, have the concerns about the reduction in town center. So.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll begin entertaining the motions.
I don't know which one's
I guess
which.
in the order that we need to do it.
Index map is first.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-20.
Is there something you need to add to that, like, as, with the conditions, or?
I don't think you added conditions in it, did you?
The index map, no.
And
We
it's,
don't put more town center in the index map. That's where it was prior to. We need to put more town center in the index map before we approve it.
well, this
So-
is part of the applicant's request, right? The index map as presented is what the applicant is.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I'll second,
Motion on the floor by
and
Commissioner
I'll
Luke,
explain.
seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Commissioner Luke, you have anything?
No, I actually stated last time that I have more of an understanding, you know, of what is going on out there. And actually, I like the applicant's idea of changing it so that everything that's built along 481 corridor has to be commercial.
Yes.
I like that. I think activity center should be that, and then you progress out. So I actually really like that idea. And they have, there was an agreement before this even came that they would only bring forward 3 of these areas, and that was what was agreed to. We do need to be reevaluating how we figure the percentages of these commercial balance within the city. So with that, I'm in agreement with the way it's presented.
Commissioner Carrison?
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, if there's something I've learned with this district over the last 14, 15 years, and that is that the market's going to dictate what happens. It's going to shift, it's going to mend, it's going to meld, you're going to see things transfer into different types of uses, and there's really nothing that's going to stop that. One of the shifts over the last 6 to 7 years has been to move those commercial properties out of the center, to get away from town centers, and to bring them more on the outside of those districts or associations or planned community developments. And because they've seen that those internal commercial town centers don't survive, they don't succeed. And so, I do believe that the reduction in the acreage, especially that whole school board thing, that really kind of concerns me. But to go down to, you know, by 200 acres, it is significant, but it's not, because we're not accounting for that acreage that the Publix was supposed to be built on. And that's a good size, and I'm hoping that at some point that's going to be ironed out and can come back in to that 200 acres. And then on top of that, it's not accounting for future annexations. So I think that within the next 5 years, you're going to see a balancing act, that you're going to bring in more commercial property as far as acreage is concerned versus what you're losing today. Does that, hopefully that makes sense to the commission anyways.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's important that we continue to move forward in the way we look at our commercial property, because times are absolutely changing within the next couple of years. won't even have to go to Publix. They'll be dropping drone bags at your house, you know?
Not my
So,
age, you won't.
so as far as the size of acreage goes, I think it is very important we relook at this, because, you know, things are online now. Brick and mortar stores are going to become a novelty more. So I just think it's important that we continue to do that, and I thank you for being willing to do that and for doing that. Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, and I agree, we have to look forward as to what the future is going to dictate, but that's not what's before us today. What's before us today is approving an index map for today and today's standards. We have changed this index map, I've counted 3 times, 2 other times in the past 2 years. 2018, we changed it. 2016, we changed it. 2007, we changed it. We can change this again as those future needs dictate. But what's before us today is right now, this index map that is short 200 or 300 commercial acres. The future will change that. We need to put it back in to preserve it for that future growth and what it dictates. If we don't have it in there, we're not going to be able to put it back. We have a responsibility to keep it in there for future growth, for future planning. And as far as this Activity Center 1, that southeast quadrant, I pulled what's required for Activity Center 1. 85% of it is commercial, office, and industrial. 85%. We don't need to change anything. We don't need to bring this in as a town center area. It's already there. Only 4% is residential. And then you have about 11% that's open space. I really feel we need to find 200, maybe even 300 acres to put it in for this future planning. So since there's a motion on the floor, I'll make an amendment to see how that flies. And I don't know if it's even going to fit, so I may have to, if I may, ask a couple questions. Where Village H is and Village L, which is right below it, it's hard to tell if it's an L or an I. An L?
Yes.
Can we put 250 acres between and split that baby? Because that is River Road East, and it's also going out to Minnesota Key Road, Minnesota Beach Road, I'm sorry. And split that, because there's going to be an intersection and a stoplight there at some point. So that would make a very good town center area for commercial, whatever that's going to be in the future. Would that be enough space to put 250 acres?
I believe it would be.
Straddling that line between the village. Mayor, if I could, I'll make an amendment to the motion.
It changes the motion.
It doesn't, we're still approving the index map. I'm just adding one thing to it,
You're adding 250 acres to it.
okay? How does that negate the motion?
I don't think it does, but.
City Attorney?
I would defer to your official parliamentarian, who's your city clerk.
I don't think it does, because you're not changing the motion to approve it, you're just adding additional information to approve what this, you're not changing the motion to approve.
I think the bigger question is, it's a condition.
No, it would have to
Right.
be changed on the index map before signature.
Huh?
The index map would have to be adjusted to reflect that before the ordinance would be signed.
Very similar to what we did when we changed the outline of the city boundaries. We did that between first and second reading. If we make this amendment to put in 250 acres between H and L, you'll just have to change the maps again.
Right.
Because this, okay.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion to have staff include 250 acres between Village H and Village L straddling that line.
Can I second that for a question or discussion?
You have that right.
Yeah.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Carson. Vice Mayor?
I just think we need to put this placeholder back in. It's for the future. It will change.
Commissioner Carson?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the boundaries between H and L, it looks like there's going to be a major roadway. And if I remember correctly, oh, there's the park. So I'm not sure where I guess the idea is to put the 200 acres within one or the other? Is that?
No, half and half. is
Kind of
what
like
she
an
said.
oval
Okay.
between H and L.
I guess that I wouldn't be sold on it being specifically between H and L. If you're saying that 200 acres has to be between H and L, in other words, it could be 50 here, 100 there, I'm okay with that. And the only reason is that there's a lot of wetlands and unbuildable space there, and it may require some creative planning and making sure 200 acres is there. I don't even know if there's 200 acres there. There's 320 and 495, but 63 of it is the, where's the forest? Oh, there's the forest, okay. I don't know. Wasn't there supposed to be a office park here on Village
other side.
L?
Nope, that's the
Or
other
H?
side. That's the River Road Office Park. It's Activity Center 8.
H.
Across from H. Across from the 63 acre park.
In G, basically, where G is, there's that grayed out area in that upper right corner. Where that gray area is, that's where that office park is going.
If I could just add a statement of clarification, the red line is actually the existing East River Road that goes into those residential areas on the end of it.
That's what my concern was, is if you're gonna say 200 acres, it has to be between, as in, to be clear, 200 acres accumulative to be planned somewhere between H and L, or within H and L.
That's what I said. The
Okay.
motion was 250 acres of commercial acreage to be in H and L. If they put 90% in H and 10% in L, if they,
Okay.
Okay,
As
Commissioner
long as
Luke?
that's what the commission, or the meeting was.
I can't agree with this. This is something that needs to be worked out. I don't know what the ins and outs of these properties are, what the topography of it is, where wetlands are, that until the two parties get together, I can't just sit here not being an expert on this stuff, not knowing the ins and outs of it and say, right there, mark X, that has to be put for thus and such. I don't have that kind of expertise or that knowledge, so I can't be doing something like that without parties actually speaking and coming up with an agreement themselves.
Commissioner McDowell?
yeah, and as far as the wetlands go, there's wetlands all over this. Village D is town center and it has wetlands in it. They're running into problems with development because of it. So the key part is it's a placeholder. It can change, just like the bean changed over time, just like the amount of commercial space has changed over time. I'm sure West Village's Improvement District or anybody else is not planning to do Village H and Village L anytime soon, and they will come back with a new and revised index map. This is not set in stone forever. We've already changed it a few times. This is just the placeholder.
All right, great. So let's take the vote on the amendment.
Ooh, I'm still
We're taking the vote on the amendment. It's time to move on.
up in the air about the amendment.
Yes or no, it's 50-50. There we go. So the amendment fails,
There you go.
2-3, with
I'm still
Commissioner
up in the
Hanks,
air.
Commissioner Luke, and Commissioner Emmerich dissenting. I have no reason
Okay.
stated. Are you good for your reason stated?
I stated my reason. I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to put a placeholder in to change it later just because we're changing it all the time, complaining about changing it all the time, and then we're going to set it up to change it again. No, can't do it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna impose anything without information either, I agree
That's kind of
with
how I
Commissioner.
felt. I just was
I don't know. Yeah,
So moving on to the main motion.
okay. Would you state the main motion, please?
City Clerk?
To approve.
Approve village roof.
There you go. And the main motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner McDowell dissenting. You have a,
Reasons why I dissented is we are cutting off the main reason that we annex this property into the city of Northport, and that is for the commercial and the industrial and the office space. And we keep letting it dwindle, and we let it dwindle to the point where it's going to be only residential, and we're going to have the same problem that Northport proper has, that general development gave us, where everything is residential, and how come we didn't plan for some type of commercial?
all right.
What are we on
Entertain
to
the next motion.
Jay.
Jay?
Jay. All right, move to approve ordinance number 2019-14.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Commissioner Luke?
Nothing, this is changing the public to village.
Commissioner Carrison? Commissioner McDowell?
Wait a minute.
It's not even quasi
The comp
judicial.
plan.
I'm sorry, I thought we were going to
Ordinance.
Village E.
Ordinance number 2019-14.
Quasi judicial.
Yep.
Yeah, Jay,
Yep,
the
Jay is
comprehensive
next.
plan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
All right, let's take the vote. And that passes unanimously. On to the next item. Entertain a motion.
Which one was that?
I think it's 1925. Oh, E?
25, yes.
Right. Oh, that's
I
F,
thought we
right?
just did Eve.
No, that's F.
No.
Yes, it's F. You even said that, Ms. Galehouse.
25 is E.
2019-25.
Well, we already did it.
Second.
1920 is E.
This is for F.
We did the comp plan amendment for E. You already did 2019-20, and you just did 2019-14.
Now we're on 2019-25.
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
It is E. You even said F, Ms. Gill. 19 is F. 25 is E.
No, 19 is G.
He's done.
So you've
I'm gonna turn
moved,
this in a paper plane and throw it at you.
moved to approve 2019-25, and I seconded it.
Yep. Which
So
is,
we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Anything to that, Commissioner Luke? Commissioner Carrison? Commissioner McDowell?
Okay, so ordinance number 2019-25 is what we are hearing now,
Yes.
which is Village E. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Village E. But item F.
I'd like to make an amendment to this motion.
Okay.
Have the residential go back to the 30% as staff has requested, instead of what the applicant is requesting of 60%.
Okay, do I have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. On to the main motion. Let's take the vote.
Stop motion.
Stop arguing over there.
My iPad's shut off on its own 4 times already today.
I've never
You
seen
want to take on
anybody
the voice
shut
vote?
the mouse.
Just record it anyway.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, hey, there we go.
Wait a minute. Was that the motion, or was that?
That was the
okay,
motion.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner McDowell dissenting for reasons stated.
Staff made a recommendation, and that's what our comp plan says.
Okay.
Did we do G?
We're on to 2019-19, item G. Item G.
Village F.
Village F, item G.
We went through this the last time.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-19. Wait,
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Commissioner Luke,
nothing.
Commissioner Carrison.
Nothing.
All right, I have nothing else, let's take the vote. And that passes unanimously. On to 2019-26, item F. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance number 2019-26.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Commissioner Luke, Commissioner Terry Tone? Nobody else, so let's take a vote. Done. That passes 4-1 with Commissioner McDowell dissenting. Commissioner McDowell, do you have a
The
reason?
reason why I dissented is we cannot have the first 10 years or 8 years of this development actually being on the backs of our taxpayers, our existing taxpayers. I know at some point it will be a positive fiscal analysis, but until that time, I think there are ways that we can change it to more of a positive thing. So that's the reason why I dissented.
All right.
It is now almost 11 o'clock, and I'm leaving you, because it's too late now.
Yeah, I think we need to just
too.
continue these last two items over to tomorrow morning.
Item I, is there any reason we cannot continue these, city manager, to a future date? September sometime.
This is the audit committee one.
No reason, right?
Just double checking. Seriously pressing.
Okay. Just double checking. So do I have a consensus by the board to go ahead
I think you
and?
need a motion, because you a motion to,
Actually, we could probably do K like that.
okay, I'm leaving.
But I think I needs to be brought back. There's a lot of discussion on that one.
Just do K like that the next time too. then.
You can't do it like that. It doesn't have to be that.
There was no discussion on the first one.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve ordinance number
read it.
2019.
You have to read it.
After she reads it.
I'll second it after you read it.
She did say like that, so we're skipping steps.
Clerk, please read ordinance by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the code of the City of Northport, Florida, Chapter 4, Boards and Committees, Article 4, Audit Committee, to incorporate amendments to Florida Statute 218-391, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing an effective date.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Move to approve ordinance number 2019-33.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. Commissioner Luke, anything to that?
I believe you volunteered to serve on that committee, didn't you,
I did.
Mayor?
I
Thank you.
did. And, you know, I like to do my part.
Yeah, right. 3 years from now.
You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to talk about it.
All right, call the vote.
Just take the vote. Why we gotta talk about everything?
I'm a woman.
I'm just doing, just doing my part, woman.
Did you vote for me?
Nope,
Yeah.
But we were unanimous.
but we were unanimous.
All right.
So that passes 4-0.
All right, shall we make a motion then to,
Let's make a motion, I guess, to move. Yep, let's do it.
bring back ordinance number 2019-11 at a later time?
Tabling it, right?
1933.
Wait a minute. What?
2033 was what I just read.
Oh, sorry, you are right.
Okay, goodness. Okay, to bring back ordinance number 2019-11 at a later time.
Can I ask a question? If they give an exact date of when they're going to bring it back, we don't have to renotice it, correct? Because it says on there that it could be continued from time to time on the notice that we already sent, or no?
I honestly don't know right now. Like, my phone already went off a long time ago and told me it was time for bed, so
No.
you're probably right, Heather, but I don't know.
If it already says on the notice we send out that it can be continued
Alright.
from time to time, so
What-
if there's an exact date that we want to continue it
So
to?
September 5th would be wonderful.
I think September 5th is getting a lot of stuff put on it. I would
Exactly.
rather see the 10th.
If,
5th is wonderful then.
because our planning staff will not be here on the 10th to address this issue, the ones that have been here for doing this.
How about the 24th?
Field day or something on the 10th, do they?
Planning conference.
So
Okay.
push back past that, like the 24th would be all right?
This is going to be a
24th
half-hour
is-
conversation,
24th
not
is
a
fine.
day.
So the 24th is good.
And it will not be pushed again, right?
Depends on how fast we move.
We'll find out that
Yeah,
night, I
right?
guess, won't we?
All matter of the board.
Good job. Birthday by doing that.
Yeah.
So did you make a motion?
I did, that we
24th.
to September 24th.
Continuing it to the
Thank you.
24th.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. Let's take a vote. All right. So we have no public comment. Commissioner Communications, Commissioner Leary.
Already done with
Commissioner
that.
Dow.
We did that.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh, we did the first time. Yay. We're adjourned. Okay.